Thank you.
Why do we need to start I like you guys say it, I'm like so excited to get out of this place. Damn, those are some dope. I don't want to be personally.
Ready when you are.
All right, good evening. I would like to call to order this regular meeting of the Encinitas City Council on Wednesday, August 28, 2024 at 6 p.m. And if the clerk would please call a roll.
Absolutely. Councilmember Hines.
Here.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Here.
Councilmember Hensy is absent. Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Here.
Mayor Crayons.
Here.
Record will show that all members of the city council are present with the exception of Councilmember Hensy.
Okay, thank you. And if all who are able would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Tonight we have three special presentations and proclamations, and we're going to start with a presentation and then a proclamation to honor the successful 20th anniversary Bro-Am. And if Chris Frederick could come to the podium and make a little presentation about just how successful the Bro-Am was that just passed.
Thank you. I'll be happy to. I believe you have a slide for us. Awesome. Perfect. And if you don't mind, if you just click on the page, it'll take you to a website. Thanks. Perfect. And if you don't mind, maybe just, can I drive? No, maybe not. Okay. Maybe just scroll down a little bit to the first kind of title there. That'd be great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Crayons, council members, City of Encinitas. Thanks for having us here. My name's Chris Frederick. I'm the foundation director at the Switchfoot Bro-Am, an annual celebration that gives back to this community and is run by this community. I think one of the things I've seen the most of in my role is that there's a real ownership and pride for this community. It's kind of it's a quintessential community event that was started by the guys in Switchfoot who would be here tonight, but they're on tour entertaining the masses. And so we're here to express their gratitude, and there's a message from them a little bit later on as well. But 20 years ago, when they were literally on top of the world, flying back from an international tour, they started to reminisce on just all the things that they were grateful for, and what they wanted to do immediately was come back to their community and share that and pay that forward and give it back to the community that raised them. And so music and surfing kept them out of trouble, as they say, and they also say that they were just young enough and dumb enough to think they could put on a free concert and surf contest right on Moonlight Beach, and that's what they've been doing right there with the immense support of the city, yourselves, Parks and Rec, Arts Department, Sheriff, Fire, and a lot of other people that come together to make this happen. So we're very proud to be a part of it. I've been around it for 10 years. We have someone here who literally was one of the people that started it with us, and our team is here today to just to share our appreciation and a little bit of the story behind it. So this year will be our biggest fundraising and award granting ever to our beneficiaries. We support beneficiaries that are nonprofit organizations in the community, specifically focused on supporting children with food insecurity, experiencing homelessness, physical disabilities, lack of resources for things like arts and music education and surfing as well. And so this year we're very proud to have raised over $250,000, and that brings our number in 20 years to over $2.75 million. And so it's something that we're very excited about, and it doesn't happen, again, without the community support. So thank you. Thank you very much. If you don't mind scrolling down a little bit, I'd just like to show you a bit of what our inspiration is, and I'm not going to read this, and I'm no good at a script, so if you don't mind just focusing on the pictures, that'd be perfect. We really love, the kids are the VIPs on this day. The community comes together, gathers. It's all built around love for this community and love for these kids who, in just being perfectly honest, as we're pretty well aware, most of their days don't look like this. They're overcoming challenges. They're our inspiration for the smiles on their faces, the challenges that they're overcoming on a regular basis, that we want to just ensure that they, as we say, have an opportunity to have a thriving future. And so what we do with them is there might be music education students from local high school or middle school who are playing up with Switchfoot on the stage. The challenged athletes are out there, kids overcoming limb disabilities and other obstacles in their lives, to some of them get on their first waves ever. And John from Switchfoot, Rob Machado, Liv Stone, others are out there pushing them into the waves. These are all some of our most inspiring moments. If you don't mind scrolling down just a little bit more. Into that picture there's a VIP lounge set up for them. They get to hang with the guys. They get to have lunch and free surf lessons and things like that. So, again, creating opportunities and experiences and exposure for them for things that they may not have otherwise, and that's a big part of our goal too. If you don't mind continuing to scroll down, I just want to get to a message from the guys here. If you could just slowly keep scrolling. There are artists playing. Artists donate their time and their talent to play 2 stages that we had this year. And if we can stop at the next section here, definitely, the backbone is over 200 people, over 200 volunteers come out to the Pro-Am, mostly from this community, some people from out of state, to make this happen, and we literally couldn't do it without them. And so we're extremely grateful for what continues to be a more and more robust event every year. And we all have a lot of fun with it too. If you don't mind scrolling down again just a little bit, we'll make our way down to a video that I want to share with you. Might stop at just the next couple pictures along the way. These, if you don't mind continuing. These are the challenged athletes, kids out there. Keep scrolling a little bit. Just having so much fun. Like I said, these smiles on their faces make it all worthwhile. And then as you scroll down at the very bottom here, the guys in Switchfoot have created a video that, if you don't mind continuing to go down. Yeah, perfect. If you don't mind, just give me a moment. Thanks. But just to wrap it up, the guys in Switchfoot wanted to share what the impact of this event has meant to them, what it's rooted in, and what the intentions are for the future, the next 20 years and beyond. So again, I just want to, on behalf of all of us, thank you all for having us out here, for the support over 20 years. I think it's a really great example of a unique and strong partnership that can be executed from the heart. So thank you. We'll just, if you don't mind expanding that, thank you.
One of the most beautiful parts of Bro-Am is that the community comes together to celebrate these kids.
Variety of charities that we're supporting each year. You've got education, you've got dance, music, you've got housing needs, food.
We can make the lives of the kids in our community better. Such a gift to see that in action.
You go and visit and see the work that these organizations are doing. These kids are giving back 10 times as much with their smiles, appreciation, attitudes. That's a gift that you can never outgive.
The Bro-Am is not just a one-day event. We want it to be a catalyst, a spark, because kids need help every day.
Bro-Am is a home for anyone who wants to make a difference, to show up and get involved.
Even after 20 years, I think there's so much more that can be done, so much impact that we can have together. And I can't wait to see what happens next.
Chris, if you you could come back up to the podium and introduce your team, and we'll all join you over here at the podium, at the little stage here for photographs. So if you could do that, I would
Sure,
appreciate it.
absolutely. Okay. Marty Kloschnak is with us from our auction team. Mia Park, who literally was at the first program, has been at one ever since, running things. With Robin from day one. So 20 years, these are wonderful things to celebrate. Kirsty is our auction director. Christine is our events director who puts, gosh, if there's a special moment you've had at Bro-Am, she was behind it, that's for sure. Jasmine is our volunteer director, and Katya has been with us on the events team for quite a few years now. So we're small, we're mighty, and this is just, it's really an honor to be up here, so thank you.
We have a proclamation form too, but I'm not going to read it because they basically, everything that they just presented to us is part of the proclamation. So, but I am going to give it to Chris for the picture, and maybe we could have Lois.
Okay, let's see. Everyone's shown. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's need a couple more. One's seen. Perfect. 1, 2, 3. And one last one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very So our next presentation is the American Heart Association's 2024 Mission Lifeline Gold Award. And who will be making, there he is right there, Josh. Josh is going to present the Fire Chief. Gordon, thank you.
That's me. Pleasure to be here. My EMS coordinator is not here tonight to help give this, so it's going to rest on me tonight. So, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and City Council. I am honored to speak with you today about a significant achievement in our community's emergency medical services. I'm excited to announce that and brag a little bit that the Encinitas Fire Department, as a member of our County Service Area 17, or CSA 17 as it's known, has been awarded the prestigious Mission Lifeline Award by the American Heart Association. This award is a testament to our commitment to providing exceptional cardiac care and improving survival outcomes for our residents. The Mission Lifeline Award is awarded only to agencies that comprehensively maintain records of their CARES data. CARES stands for Cardiac Arrest Registry of Enhanced Survival. This registry collects post-event data on numerous critical factors that include the time from the 911 call to the first cardiac medication given to a patient experiencing acute coronary syndrome or a heart attack, the time from the 911 call to the administration of a 12-lead EKG, the time from the 911 call to a CT scan for a stroke patient, the time from the 911 call to a coronary catheterization, and cardiac arrest outcomes. The award is issued based on this comprehensive data. The Mission Lifeline data is an aggregate of all our agencies within the district. The CSA 17 is comprised of Encinitas, Rancho Santa Fe, Solana Beach, and Del Mar. This year, only 3 organizations were awarded the Mission Lifeline Award: Escondido, Oceanside, and our agencies within the CSA 17. I'm proud to share that we were the only agency in San Diego County to have received the highest achievement level of gold. 2024 marks our 5th consecutive year receiving the Mission Lifeline Award. This recognition by the American Heart Association, which administers advanced cardiac care credentials for pre-hospital healthcare providers, underscores the excellence and dedication of our paramedics and emergency medical teams. It highlights our commitment to maintaining the highest standards of care and continuously improving our response times and treatment protocols. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our dedicated firefighters, paramedics, emergency medical technicians, and all the support staff who work tirelessly to ensure the best possible outcomes for our patients. Their hard work, dedication, and commitment to excellence are the driving forces behind this achievement. The Mission Lifeline Award is not just a recognition of our past achievements, but a motivation to continue striving for excellence in emergency medical services. We're committed to maintaining and improving our standards to ensure the health and safety of our community. Thank you for your time and attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I appreciate this award, and it does speak to the men and women that we have working in this community as first responders, and well-deserved award. A lot of hardworking people, very dedicated to the health and well-being of our community, and I appreciate you presenting. I don't know if anybody else has any questions or comments, but thank you very much for making us all aware of this award.
Thank you for your time.
All right. And then finally tonight, I'm going to ask Tom Shar to stand here at the podium and take a bow for your silver medal performance in the Olympics and the skateboarding. And, you know, obviously Encinitas is very proud of our history of top-notch skateboarders. And you are one, and I appreciate a lot that you have made the effort to become such a outstanding skater. And I have brought tonight a video because I wanted, if you could, to kind of describe a little bit about what it takes. I know you've done a 1080, I believe it is.
Yeah, long time ago.
Yeah, you didn't do it in the Olympics, but that is amazing to imagine spinning around that much time. And when I saw this video, I was struck by just how acrobatic you are, and the work that you did to obtain that silver medal was pretty special. So if we could play that for a minute or so. That was amazing. So
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about the experience that you had there in Paris?
Yeah, it's been the craziest few weeks of my life, that's for sure. But it was amazing. I mean, I got to go and try and show the rest of the world skateboarding, and I got to do it with my best friend. So I can really.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you're a graduate of San Diego Academy.
Yep.
And you maybe skated a bit at Poods, or?
I live pretty much at Poods, so yeah. I've been there.
And the Y perhaps a little bit?
That's where I grew up skating, was the Y, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're proud of you and really appreciate all the effort that you've made. I know that, you know, it's not necessarily a young man's game. I see Tony Hawk out there still skating a bit, so my hunch is that we're going to see some more awards from you, and 2028 is not that far away, so I'm looking forward to the gold medal on that one.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you.
All right. We're going to move over there and take a picture because we want to be associated with your success.
Ready, everyone? Perfect. 1, 2, 3. Maybe just a couple more. 1, 2, 3. You guys want to be in the photo too? Oh, no. Okay, one last one. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, stay up there. Okay. We have, Matt is going to give you a little presentation as well from Senator Blakespear.
Mayor Kranz, Deputy Mayor Blackwell, council members, my name is Matt Rubel, and I bring greetings from the office of State Senator Catherine Blakespear. And Tom and I chatted a little bit in the lobby, and he goes fast and he goes hard. 3 runs, 60 seconds each. Boy, 5 seconds away from bringing home gold. That 720 tail spin, bro. Awesome, super gnarly. So we brought a certificate of recognition on behalf of the State Senate presented to Tom Shar in honor of your Olympic silver medal. Congratulations for bringing home silver in men's park at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. This win is a testament to your relentless pursuit of excellence in the world of skateboarding. Your incredible talent, coupled with your sportsmanship, has raised the bar at the highest standards. Senator Blakespear and our entire team thank you for making our country and this community proud. Thank you very much.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Take one more. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, we're moving on to item 5, oral communications, please.
Yes, we do have several, and just a reminder, oral communications is the time to speak on items that are not listed on the agenda. I will call you 3 at a time, and you do have 3 minutes. The first 3 speakers, Skip Hammond, followed by Susan Schroeder, followed by Michelle Kilman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Skip Hammond. My colleagues and I live in San Diego County. We're volunteers with an organization called United Sovereign Americans. We are not spokespersons. United Sovereign Americans is a nationwide organization with thousands of active volunteers in over 20 states. The website is uniteforfreedom.com. That's unite4freedom.com. Today we come to you as concerned citizens sharing alarming information about our state's voter roll database. Research of the state's voter database was done through hundreds of hours of research conducted by highly qualified and credentialed data teams. An analysis of the 2022 election researched by highly qualified data teams using only official data provided by the California elections officials indicates serious issues with compliance of federal law. We're here to present to you and the public the results of the aforementioned analysis showing the votes cast, counted, and certified may not all be valid and accurate under the Constitution and under the law. We are not here to cast any blame or aspersions on any elected official. We do not suggest any candidate in any race have wrongly won or lost the races, nor do we advocate for overturning or rerunning any of the past elections. Today we will present you with a resolution demanding an end to the inaccuracy and uncertainty plaguing our elections, along with a summary of our findings and the laws that apply. Though you bear no direct responsibility for anything in the electoral process, we come to you, our closest elected representatives, for support and action. We're asking that you listen to the resolution and take the necessity for a valid election seriously by adding the resolution to your next meeting agenda. Your written copy that have been passed out to the council members cites many U.S. Supreme Court precedents and federal and constitutional mandates to support the need for such actions. Thank you, and our next 3 speakers will read the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan, and I'm here to read into the record the first portion of the USA Resolution. Resolution for a legally valid 2024 general election. Whereas it is a recognized civil right in the United States for every citizen to have free and fair elections. Whereas it is the duty of our election officials to guarantee our elections are accurate and free from distortion or manipulation. Whereas our constitutional system of representative government only works when the following 4 tenets of an election are upheld. 1, the voter rolls must be accurate. National Voter Registration Act, 1993. 2, votes counted must be from eligible voters. U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 2. 3, the number of votes counted must equal the number of voters who voted. 4, there can be no more than 1 in 125,000 ballots in error by the voting system. Help America Vote Act, 2002. Whereas the analysis of the California 2022 general election has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that appear to violate both the federal and state laws, including 5,886,198 ineligible or uncertain registration violations found within the California State Voter Roll database. 2,776,939 votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrations. 123,785 more votes counted than voters who voted. No one knows who cast them. 2,776,849 apparent voting violations in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election. Maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election was 90. However, in California, we had approximately 2.8 million apparent voting violations.
Hi, my name's Michelle, and I'm here to read into the record the next section of the USA resolution. Again, California had approximately 2.8 million apparent voting violations. Certification as defined by law is an attestation of accuracy and compliance. The certification of the 2022 election appears to have been fraudulent and illegal. Whereas these findings trample legal accuracy requirements of the voting system during a federal election. Whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can be lawfully conducted. Whereas the 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of the guaranteed protection of our natural rights under a government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damage to our families, our way of life, and the fabric of these United States. Therefore, we call upon our representatives to provide relief to the people and the assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 general election that upholds these existing laws and equitable principles of law, including, number one, proof of citizenship, identity, and eligibility required to register and vote, not anonymous attestation. Number two, voter rolls certified, accurate, and available for public review and challenge 30 days before the start of early voting. Voters added after that date must bring proof of citizenship, identity, and address in person to a qualified official at the polling place. Number four, hand-marked, secure ballots similar to currency, where imaging technology is used for tabulation. The security features must be verifiable in the ballot image. Number four, systems, machines, security measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with federal law for fraud prevention regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation.
Next
Thank
three
you.
speakers, Susan Kennedy, Madison Rapp, and then Jean Chepo.
My name is Susan Kennedy, and I will read into the record the last section of the USA resolution. 5, adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witness after being given full and effective observation rights. Candidates and trained citizens must be allowed immediate access to ballots, ballot images, and cast vote records. 6, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations, and systems, must maintain end-to-end chain of custody, from voter to vote count to final canvass, including auditability and witness transfer with paper records. 7, a National Institute of Standards and Technology compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2 must be performed. These audits are to be conducted by qualified, insured, and bonded security, forensics, or financial auditors, not personnel from within the election system. Reconciliation will include the vote count, real physical ballots, adjudication, cast vote records, ballot count, qualified voter count, custody transfer, and all other paper and electronic election systems, including logs. 8, if the total of unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held in the state for those candidates affected unless the issues can be provably corrected by a manual hand count, recount, and a full review of the records. 9, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration through certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately recorded. Be it resolved that the Encinitas City Council members stand in support with the concerns and remedies presented here. We implore that San Diego Board of Supervisors, California Legislature, federal legislators, law enforcement, federal and state prosecutors, judges, and both California Secretary of State and county registrars of the voters to cooperate and fulfill these firm requests of the people. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Madison Rapp, followed by Jean Chapo, and then Scott Campbell.
Hello, Mayor Krantz and Encinitas City Council, and thank you for the chance to share my concern. My name is Madison Rapp, and my goal is to help protect children and teens from the negative consequences that come with the increasing availability of marijuana products. 3 marijuana storefronts have opened in Encinitas because of a ballot initiative heavily financed by pot profiteers. This normalizes and perpetuates marijuana use. What message do we want to send to our children? I am at home raising my 3 young kids, and I hope that they can get through adolescence without doing drugs. Vaping and using cigarettes and recreational cannabis are not helping young people physically or mentally, and in fact cause many harms. Marijuana use in youth has major negative impacts on cognition and attention. It also causes an increased risk of mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and psychosis. These are serious conditions that can have long-lasting effects on a young person's life and well-being. Public opinion of marijuana is actually trending down. Gallup just did a poll that showed that only 43% of Americans now view marijuana favorably, down 10 points from 2022. And among young adults, it was down 7%. I think this is interesting because it shows that as people have more exposure to marijuana and know more people who are using it, they are seeing the negative consequences and recognizing the harms. I hope we can follow this trend and truly get to know the facts about the harms of marijuana, and as a community, it is our duty to protect our youth from these risks. This includes discouraging underage marijuana use, educating parents and caregivers about the dangers, and providing support and resources for young people who may be struggling with substance abuse. Perhaps it is also time to reconsider that ballot initiative that allowed marijuana storefronts to open in the city. People seem to now be opening their eyes to the harms of marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following Jean Chapo is Scott Campbell, Lori Michaels, and then Geraldine Kessler.
Good evening. My name is Gene Chapo. I've been here since 1970 and have loved this city since the day I got here. I'll tell you that I'm not a person who pulls up drawbridges, and I'm also very interested in housing. I want as many people as is reasonable to have the same experiences that I've had in this city. To that end, we have some difficulties in the city in building affordable housing, and I've really labored with this for a long time. And prior to the time that we do something with L7, and I know we've had a lot of discussion lately about L7 and whether it's a surplus piece of property, et cetera, I want us to consider, or I want to offer you a consideration, and that is, I live on Union Street. At the end of Union Street is Clark Street Apartments, project that hasn't yet begun and has just recently asked for an extension. It's 199 units, and my consideration and my thought was you might consider opening a dialogue with the developers of that project involving an exchange of properties. I understand the city has some financial issues with building affordable housing of their own. Other cities have done so, and I've always wondered why we haven't. And I'm seeing this as an opportunity for the city to capture 199 units of affordable housing in exchange for a piece of property that's highly contentious. I think everyone can win in this situation. I think years back, L7 has been a dozen different things. It was a library site at one time. It was proposed as 12, 14 houses by Carltus at one time, luxury homes, and a number of other things, including a park most recently, as I see on the agenda this evening. But before we go down that road, I'm hoping that we can say, we as a city of Encinitas, all of us collectively have this asset that we should think long and hard about doing something valuable with that asset. If we could enter into some kind of business engagement, even if it was a three-way engagement of some kind, we could end up with something that potentially we will have as a city forever. 199 units is a lot of units of affordable housing. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay, my name is Scott Campbell, and first off, I'd like to say I've had pleasant experiences with all the council over the past week and in person and in other ways. The next thing is I asked the council to pursue a rooftop lighting ordinance similar to Oceanside recently did. The Planning Commission has talked about this, and I ask you to get involved. The third thing I'd like to talk about is the street dining barriers. Paint the outside solid, let them go at it on the inside. Nobody talked about that. Okay, so let's get going. This picture actually has a lot of going on here. It shows sand replenishment, it shows bluff failures, and up in the upper right, it actually shows zoning changes. So here, I'm actually here to talk about Hippie Hill. A lot of us found out to our dismay that NCTD is doing their thing. It's about double tracking. And the dismay is really about how much land they're using. That tree and that palm tree are gone. They're gone. Okay, so this is what they're doing. We're bringing in rocks, and we're going to go all the way across the lagoon here. This is from yesterday, last night. We're bringing down rocks. That hill, that's going to be an access way permanently. This is looking up. Hippie Hill is gone. What did we buy? We bought stuff to the right. We bought a slope. We didn't buy much for that $6 million. We really didn't. And then, is there going to be a fence? I mean, what kind of fence is NCTD going to put up on this? This is pretty amazing. This also relates to double tracking through Leucadia, which shows that double tracks actually go all the way through the parking pods, and we need to be on top of this. Who's going to blink first, us or NCTD on the La Costa Bridge? That's the last remaining part of Hippie Hill. It's going to be gone. I talked to the guys today. They're pretty sure it's going to be gone. It's sad, but that's life. Now, that old clicker is better. So guys are working. On the lower left, I have a video, but it's really incredible, the coordination and ballet that these trucks do, and the 10-point T-turns, and the timing of the loader, and the unloading, and the new trucks coming in. But today, the guy said 14 trucks. They're coming from Corona. Talk about emissions and dirt. I mean, look at all the dust showing up there. They're working this. I mean, I'm not against this. We're doing the double tracking. We need it. And then our last thing is, the city said that they weren't aware. Whose fault is that? We have representatives on NCTD. Kelly Hinsey attended the June 20th meeting. Who attended the July 18th meeting? It's not the NC. They don't have very good data. We don't have any excuse to not know about this, and that's all I got for this. I'll be back pretty soon. Thank you.
I would encourage everybody that's interested in the project of the double tracking to subscribe to the Build NCC North Coast Corridor emails so that you're notified of any developments that are important for the community to be aware of.
I have an email with them right now going. Thanks.
Next speaker is Lori Michaels, followed by Geraldine Kessler, Natalie Satoon, and then Mark Maville.
Good evening, Council. I live on Cornish Drive, and my neighbors have designated me to reach out to you as I seem to be one of the more outspoken. Our street, like so many, has become a dangerous thoroughfare. Some time ago, Tasha, Borner, and Tony helped us get speed cushions. It did seem to help for a while, but people have figured out how to slow down over those humps and then fly to the next ones as they are spaced way too far apart. Our first request would be to have a couple more speed bumps, or at least more 25-mile-an-hour signs and 25 MPH periodically painted on the street, as has been done on Requesa, which has sidewalks. Cornish does not. Sometimes when a driver is actually going the speed limit, there will be 4 or 5 cars tailgating them down the street. We have no sidewalks, but we have lots of Highland neighbors walking their kids and dogs. We've reached out to our district council member, Kelly Hensey, but she hasn't responded. I did learn she's on pregnancy leave. So, as we have no one representing us, we hope the council would help us without having to go through the whole process with the Traffic Commission and give direction to staff to help traffic calming on Cornish, as you've done on the other streets. There's a group of us that would be happy to meet with anyone who would be willing to see where we find the most dangerous areas. And I hope someone will contact us, as Kelly's not available. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would like to get you up to speed as to where the Melba project is heading. The one that is removing 173 trees, 30 smaller trees and native shrubs, and demoing 3 beautiful historical homes built in 1938. Our small, tight-knit community is faced with the hearing for the Planning Commission on September 5th, right after the Labor Day weekend. Many in the neighborhood and experts cannot come to speak at that meeting because they will be out of town with the long weekend. We have asked to postpone the hearing, which seems like a simple request, but the owner and developer have denied it, once again showing his true colors. Let me just shift gears here and talk about being a good neighbor, which we have not seen from the owner and developer for the last 3 years. The phrase, love thy neighbor, comes from the Bible, Leviticus 19:18, which says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Some say that loving your neighbor is a critical part of creating and maintaining strong communities. Others say that loving your neighbor can change other people's lives and also shape us into more Christian-like people. Here are some ways to love your neighbor. Treat others with respect the same way you would like to be treated. Many of these density bonus projects have only served to turn their neighborhood into turmoil and cause ill harm to many that reside next to this Melba project. Is that what the state wanted with these housing projects? Because that seems to be what's happening. This Melba project borders at least 5 different neighborhoods and will be impacting the preschool, Oakcrest Middle School, Boys and Girls Club, the Garden, and the last rural horse farm in Encinitas in the beautiful Oakcrest Park. Please give us the time we need to organize and review this final draft environmental impact report, which is not available, unlike what it states on the public notice. Remember, by loving thy neighbor, we can create strong communities, according to the Bible. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, Natalie Satoon. I have Cardiff. I have a couple of videos, so those can be. These were from 2 weeks ago, 2 Sundays ago, and they should have volume.
Why? Why? Heavens are a man! Now is a man!
This is actually a 90-minute walk around Encinitas Sunday, 2 weeks ago. And then I also have one more for the overhead. So, and this is Mayor Kranz, your comment on X, that you seem to think, haha, it was fine for you to be assaulted and not report it. But for the many of us who live here, it's quite insulting because we like to enjoy our town. And it concerns me because here we are at the eve of the election season, and you're finding humor in what our town looks like on a weekend. I happened to catch the tail end of the homeless action plan meeting. I don't know if any of you all noticed or read the articles that came out today in Carlsbad and Oceanside have already taken steps and measures months ago to do this. And
Thank you.
we are
It was
behind the
reported.
eight ball.
It was reported. So.
Thank you. It was the Chris Lawrence project.
Mark Maville, final speaker.
Christ. Mark Maville, once again, I was on the homeless deal. I had a good idea there. I hope we can make that implement itself. First of all, I'd like to propose a 4-minute don't ability here and 35 on the other end of it.
No, thank you.
So
Three
that we
minutes.
can empty the tank and people don't have to feel so pressured for 3 minutes. And so I spent a little too much time on that. The 4 things that I'm going to talk about are the cameras in the parks. That's got to be done. I mean, eyes when people aren't there. It assists the sheriff, talking to Sheriff Wells, and they're able to see everything just from a camera that could be centrally located, and you know what's actually going on, and things could get tightened up a little bit. The cannabis huts, yes, I agree with the one lady about the kids. Those 2 or 3 have got to go. I don't care what you got to do, but they got to be out of here. Dragging your feet on that is just perilous. It really is. This outside dining thing, immediately you got to start deconstructing, demoing that crap. I don't know why it got extended, but you got to stop it. There's limited handicap access. Non-restaurant businesses are affected by the parking. These people are going other cities, and there goes your tax revenue that you guys are all so concerned about. So it's got to go. You don't need it. The buses struggle. People struggle. You talk about bike symposiums and bike safety. It's too narrow for those kids that aren't very good on bikes to be going down that street with that. It's not even necessary. Just have the people go inside. And lastly, the sheriff's role on the homeless. Curfew enforcement and the +2, that's great. You guys at least did that, or somebody did. Now we've got more sheriffs and can handle, the volume or whatever you want to call it, of crime that is definitely a part of this homeless epidemic. It's gotten a lot better. We know about the state mandates. Things are tightened up. The Supreme Court hearing that kind of went in the way of favor of, the homeless control situation. And like I said, it's AA. I'm 17 years sober. That's how you control it. It's from the drugs and alcohol. That's the crux of the problem, not a database, not a recovery home. That's just a holding cell for them. And then you're moving the problem from one place to another, and you have not solved anything. And it's a lot of money to be just keep perpetuating and just grinding away. These people have to surrender, recover, and somehow maybe go through the steps, and that's why I'm advocating maybe an AA meeting that has got a venue permit behind it and do it that way.
Thank you.
Because the other way is not going to work. It's not.
Thank you. Okay. With that, appreciate the comments, taking the opportunity to address the community and the city council. We move on now to reports from closed session. And we did report out after our meeting, but I think we're going to do it again, huh?
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Approximately 4 p.m., City Council met in closed session. Approximately 4:05 p.m., we recessed into closed session itself, recessed back out at approximately 4:42 to adjourn the special meeting. While in closed session, City Council discussed one case, closed session, conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation, under the authority of Government Code Section 54956.9, subsection D, subsection 2. And while in closed session, the City Council took no reportable action. That closes closed session report.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to posted agenda. And then moving to the consent calendar, items 8J and 8K have been removed by the public. And then one resident or one individual, Mo Samek, is registering support for item 8L, but does not wish to speak.
And I want to pull L.
You want to pull L?
Okay, so that means we have items 8A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, still on consent, and I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
We're having some technical issues this evening. Let's see if it'll, oh, here we go. And Councilmember Hensy is absent. A motion carries with Councilmember Hensy absent. That takes us to item 8J.
8J.
J, and the
Is there a public speaker?
We do have two, Scott Campbell and Patty Stottlemyre.
Okay, do we need a presentation first, Scott?
They want.
Brief presentation, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. My name is Bader Suleiman, engineer with the CIP division. The item before you tonight is the construction award package for the Santa Fe East construction project. This is the second phase of construction on Santa Fe, continuing the ongoing construction from Evergreen Drive to El Camino Real. Quick snapshot of the overall Santa Fe Drive project. This is focusing on connection to schools, as well as enhancing safety and mobility for pedestrian, vehicle, and bicycle traffic along Santa Fe. The eastern phase, as you can see here, is denoted in red, which specifically incorporates buffered bike lane, continuous sidewalk, signal upgrades, as well as landscape and drainage improvements. Some project history. City Council approved the design contract in April 2020 with scope modifications in August 21 due to budget constraints. The approved design for the western and eastern phase was completed in August 22 and May 24 respectively. And the award of the western phase construction was 1 year ago in August 23. And the action tonight is to award eastern phase construction. As well as community input was completed in late 2020, as well as our citizen participation plan in March 2021, with a second one held in October 21 to reflect the scope changes, and then the final approval from Planning Commission in February 22. The grant funding for this project for the eastern phase is in large part an active transportation grant from the state, applied and approved in 2016. That has a $996,000 total. The construction award deadline is September 30th of this year, for us to retain the $782,000 available for construction. As well as we have the state priority legislative budget appropriated from Senator Blakespear for the construction of both phases. We currently have $1.5 million available for the eastern phase construction. And then the HSIB grant was for the western phase, which was a total of $692,000 for design and construction. Some of the project benefits for the eastern phase, the backdrop here is a general typical section of the eastern phase. You have buffered bike lane, primarily with some segments of protected bike lane, connective sidewalk where possible, landscape drainage improvements, signal upgrades at Valor and Lake Drive, as well as a new crosswalk at Crest Drive. Here's a snapshot of the comparison of existing conditions and proposed conditions for bike facilities. Existing right now is primarily non-buffered on-street bike lane, with our design incorporating buffered bike lane with some segments of protected bike lane. And then comparing the existing conditions and proposed conditions for pedestrian facilities, we see very minimal existing concrete walkways on the east segment of Santa Fe. And our proposed design will have connective sidewalk where possible, as well as the crosswalk at Crest Drive. And lastly, the recommended actions tonight, authorizing the award of a construction contract with Tri-Group Construction as the lowest responsive bidder for the Eastern Phase project, as well as adopting City Resolution 2024-99 to increase the Santa Fe Drive project by $1.4 million to fully fund the Eastern Phase, as well as authorizing the execution of Amendment Number 2 with Kleinfelder Construction Services to complete construction management and inspection services for the Eastern Phase. And we are available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We do have three speakers, Scott Campbell, Patty Stottlemyre, followed by James O'Hara.
Okay, so I don't have an actual problem with this. Yeah, let's talk about election integrity. No phones up there. Let's get your phones out. This is election integrity. Those ladies should still be here. So I don't have a problem with this project at all. What I do have a problem with is the budget funding shell game. That's unsustainable. We can't, this is a one-time shot. We're not going to keep finding money and moving it around for projects. And in this case, we're talking about $82,574 out of our unfunded or our unallocated budget of $581,000. So I'm actually going to talk about 8K a little bit here too, because if you add those two and the money we're pulling out of our budget that we haven't spent yet is 30%. We're spending 30% of our unspent money in the first month of the budget year. Are you guys counting on a yes vote on Measure K? Vote no on Measure K, everybody watching? Because I hear this on various commissions, and they're making assumptions that, we're going to get this money and we're going to spend it. There's no guarantee that you're going to get this, and we can't just keep making these projects and pulling money out that we don't have. Now, along those lines, I'm not too happy with the 500-yard lane diet. That's part of the seaside construction. And on Monday, I had the unfortunate experience. I'm going to go check out Santa Fe at 3:45 in the afternoon. That was an OMG moment. Seriously. I mean, why can't we get this stuff finished in time for school? Now, speaking of projects, these are projects we haven't really started yet. There's projects that we have done, and they're temporary. There's a stop sign on Sheridan. I traversed it twice today, and I stopped, and I had eye contact with everybody, and I still almost got hit twice. So I request the council to ask the sheriff to put another patrol on there and get these people. This is at 8 in the morning and at 9:30 in the morning if you want these specific times to catch people that literally don't even slow down. So that's my report on this. I just don't think we should be spending money, 30% of our unallocated budget in the first month of the budget. That's poor management of the city funds, and my view and a lot of people's views. I have 30 seconds left. I'll give it back to the city. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Patty Stottlemyre. Okay, I live off of Santa Fe, so I've been driving here, and it's a bit uncomfortable. There's a lot of traffic backup, and just feeling kind of squeezed. But yesterday, all of a sudden, I'm thinking the reason why I'm feeling uncomfortable here is if there's a fire engine that needs to get through here, I mean, where are the cars going to pull over to get out of the way? And this is right across from the high school. What if there's a fire there and there's so much traffic coming out of there? Can you turn the page, please? And turn it around. So, I mean, wow. We're a desirable area here like Lahaina. Could we have another one here? Could you do the next one, please? Thank you. Okay, so it's a hefty price tag. And for what? Improvements, it looks like it's very dangerous to me. Blocking roads, and there's other projects like this too. On the Coast Highway, I'm noting. So, if emergency vehicles need to get through, how are the cars going to pull over to make way? So about the price tag. Now, is this what the 1% sales tax hike is for? And or litigation costs for litigation for the low-income qualified buyers that lost out to the affordable homes that were given to Blackstone, the multinational conglomerate with $1 trillion in assets that has a monopoly not only in San Diego, all of the United States, and now in Encinitas. It's like, are we turning into a playground for the billionaires here? Or litigation costs for wrongful termination suit for refusing the Russian roulette poison shot? Is that what our 1% sales tax hike, some of the things they might go to? Thank you.
James O'Hara?
Hello, Council. I'm Jim O'Hara. I'm currently running for City Council District 2. I'm not here to say this is a bad idea or a good idea. I'm for anything that helps our public be more safe, our kids at our schools be more safe, getting to and from school. I think that's a great idea. I think that was your intention here. What I've seen over the years is a habit we've developed of repeating a number of builds and design qualities that seem to result in negative outcomes or outcomes that are questionable. And at the time, so what I'm looking at myself and I'm talking out in public to the rest of the cycling community. For those who don't know me, at the City Council, I was on Team USA for 3 years, represented the US as a member of Team USA at the National or the World Championships, rather, 3 times. I've biked 10,000 miles around San Diego, some ridiculous number, but I've got some experience and I've met the people in the cycling community. I feel like when we make these decisions, they're not included in the decisions, and we would save ourselves so much time, so much energy if we would work harder to connect with them before we get to this point we're at. Because I know after the fact, these designs are going to be questioned online over and over and over again by that same community, who are, in my opinion, very expert level in this. So I'm not really against it. I think this is great. I think we're doing a lot of things to help mobility in the city, but I think we need to look at how we're doing it and who we're bringing in, and to keep ourselves from repeating patterns that put us in difficult position with the public and the users. So I know safety is our number one concern outcome. So just want to advocate for us to reevaluate how we come to these decisions, how we're building similar structures over and over again that don't seem to be getting the result that we want. Thank you for your time, and I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Geraldine Kessler.
Okay, I don't have anything prepared, but I just thought I'd say that I like that 4-way stop on Crest and Santa Fe. It's just so much safer. And I was wondering if maybe the bikes could travel on Melba rather than on Santa Fe during this construction. Maybe I find that they're so dangerous. They get right in. I'm sorry. I got a big car and I'm real conscientious, but sometimes the bikers with the kids on the back are just so aggressive. So I think it's a good idea maybe to ask those bikers to go on Melba during that rush hour time. And also, I don't even go, like I'm leaving the hospital to go home on Santa Fe. I started to go Requesa and then just hop on Encinitas Boulevard just to get rid of the traffic flow. And maybe do some police officers around in the morning. I'm sure you do, but I don't think a lot of people know that it's 20 miles an hour, and so they're still like just going super fast, and that's on Crest and Melba a lot. So anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
That does conclude speakers.
Councilmember Ayers.
Yeah, I had some concerns about this, but I'm trying to look at it initially at the high level. And this is another streetscape, basically, treatment on Santa Fe. And total, I worked with the finance group and engineering, and we're spending about $8 million on this, and that does not include the roundabout at Crest. And I think I've heard from the previous discussions, I think we're all in agreement that we want to put a roundabout there. That's the right solution, that the stop sign is a temporary safety enhancement, and we all understand that it causes some flow problems, but ultimately we do want to get to that. But that would just raise that roughly $8 million or more, give or take, for all of Santa Fe. And by the way, that's about 1.3 miles of road, $8 million for that. You know, and we have streetscape in Leucadia where we've spent, I say the number is 54 million that we've spent on about 2.5 miles. And then if you go back to around 2002, we did the downtown streetscape, which was about 0.8 of a mile, and we spent 6 million. So you can see these are all big ticket items. And so I'm concerned about how much money we're spending here, that we're going for everything. Obviously, we didn't get the roundabout, but you know, and this one's not as expensive per mile as the Leucadia streetscape. But so I started looking down, peel the onion, start looking under the hood. Let's see where that money's coming from. And I think Scott Campbell was getting to this. There was, first of all, $232,000 that was held back or peeled off of last year's paving budget. And my question is, why? Why would I divert that from paving? If you look at our pavement condition index, which we measure every 5 years and we predict it, it's been dropping steadily for quite a few years, which means we're underinvesting. So I would have liked to have seen that money kept there. So, but understand we have to fund this too and keep it going. It's under construction now. I did have concern also about, that was $232,000 held over from last year's pavement budget that is going now not into pavement directly, but into pavement indirectly as refurbing or doing the streetscape in Santa Fe. So it's legally applicable, but I'm thinking, hey, we want to backfill that over on the pavement, the raw pavement budget, because I think everybody would agree our pavement condition is dropping. There was another $250,000 that was funding this, that came from the traffic mitigation fees. And I was wondering, hey, which project did that come from? And staff came back and said that was from the a big payment we got for mitigation from Scripps. So at least that's on the right road. So that cleared it for me, and I said, that's a good place to use traffic mitigation fees for Scripps on the road they're on, so that's good. So it really came down for me whether I make a big stink about this project because of the 232, and my choice is I'll go forward with this today, but I want to fight for basic infrastructure first, and we need to get more money into our pavement, repaving fund, and our slurry seal so that we don't have declining pavement over time. But I'll be supporting this tonight.
Thank you. Geraldine, thank you for your feedback on the four-way stop. That is a fairly new improvement. And as far as the coordination with the bikes with school, we're coordinating with the school, and they're coordinating with the students. But thank you for that input. The sheriff is totally aware, too, with the motorcycle deputies. And they're hitting some of those areas you were talking about. So this item 8J has gotten support from the community since 2020 and a lot of public input, and much of this project is in my district, District 3. So I know the community is really looking forward to it. It is a safety improvement project, and it connects at the east end with El Camino Real, where Brody Champlain Kingman was hit and died. We have some other safety improvements planned for that intersection if we can afford them as well. We have seen over the last year or longer actually now that our construction bids are coming in higher than what we planned for across the board, all of the projects. This is a little bit difficult to continue to move forward with achieving the objectives that we've put in front of the community and they expect for us to achieve, but yet the prices have escalated as much as 20 to 30%. So we're still experiencing some of that. We hope that with supply chain solutions, we hope that this will be mitigated over time, but sometimes I think it's just really hard once prices go up for them to come back down in the construction industries. But we can still be aware of it and plan accordingly. So this is a project, the Santa Fe extension, the phase 2, that I've scrutinized the numbers as well, and it's always good to make sure we're on top of where the money's coming from, and I'm really very happy about how we've been able to move this forward. And so I will move approval of 8J.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, and I can second that. I did want to dive a little bit into the numbers because I think there was an update, and I had asked some questions earlier just about what was going to give if we had to move this money, but there was an update in terms of the traffic mitigation fees. Is that correct? And if so, meaning we had more coming in from that, is that possible it will cause us not to have to use the unassigned general fund balance to the same degree?
So I did send an update that this year we received a bunch of funding from various projects, a lot of small projects. We got a big deposit from Fox Point. We got a big deposit from Scripps this year. But I misspoke about the timing in my last email. So all that funding has been distributed between the streetscape drainage and this project. So there's somewhere around $15,000 or $30,000 left in traffic mitigation fees. So we don't have a lot left. But as far as an opportunity to identify additional funding, I know Teresa's team is going through the year-end closeout. So we have the ability to, say, backfill the paving funding if council directs us to do so if additional funding is identified at mid-year.
Well, on that topic, I think if we do, I guess we'll come to that at the year-end close and we can talk about it. But yeah, I think we should be considering that and replenishing the paving fund for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would like to applaud Jill and your team and the city manager for the excellent effort that you've made. You've got some huge projects going on around our city. The improvements that we've made over the last several years have been tremendous. It's the culmination of a significant amount of work, and I really, really appreciate the effort that you put in. In fact, if you look at the total funding available, where you scrambled to make up for the high bid and the shortage, there is the El Portal undercrossing project, which is a Sandag refund of $500,000. That's because we got that El Portal undercrossing for the railroad completed in a way that the contingencies were didn't have to be spent. So I really appreciate the effort, and I think that when you get down to it, there's no city in this region other than maybe the city of San Diego that's done more capital projects between the $25 million for the first segment of streetscape, which included the bridge undercrossing for Pawlecky Central School and access to the beach. The work that we're doing on the north end to put in sidewalks where there have never been sidewalks before, to put in storm drains where there have never been storm drains before. There's $15 million worth of storm pipes that are going into that project. I'm not sure where Councilmember Ehlers gets his $58 million, but I'd love to see his work because we're not spending that much yet. We can. There's another segment that hasn't been built, but it's a huge project, $100 million worth of improvements to a 100-year-old highway. So I really appreciate all the effort that you put in. Obviously, I wish that we didn't have to deal with the increases through inflation and other, the economy being brisk and contractors hard to get. But what we're seeing here is a team that has worked real hard to put together the second phase of this project, and it's a really critical project. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I'll call for the vote, please.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hensy absent. That takes Scott Campbell.
Got the phones down now? Okay, so I wasn't really going to talk about this, but I thought about a few things while I was sitting there. It was nice that you brought up infrastructure, Tony. This crosswalk, I don't think it's as necessary as new drainage where there's no existing drainage. So I think if we're going to divert funds, we should put it just straight to drainage. Who benefits from this crosswalk? Who really benefits? I say residents of Solana Beach are going to benefit from this. It's right next to their city. There's no residents of Encinitas within a couple miles of this crosswalk. Why are we doing this? We should get Solana Beach to do this. They actually have better experience with doing this. They have crosswalks. They have a bridge over the highway. They actually have completed their coastal rail trail. I think we should defer and let them do all this and put the money back into other projects that are more necessary for public health and safety. I mean, who are we attracting? People from out of town to park at Seaside to walk across the highway? They're not really economically benefiting the city. Let's put money in for people that are paying the taxes and not for benefit of the tourism. It's a pretty simple equation. Stop the shell game of the funding. It's going to happen one way or another. Whether you want to or have to, we're going to run out of money. I'll give you my minute and a half back. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I see that there is there are two grants, the HSIP grant funding for this project, and there's an anticipated grant. I appreciate you obtaining those grants for this project. I can tell the folks here that I look forward to this being completed because when I'm riding my bike to Solana Beach and Del Mar, the walkers are currently walking in the bike lane. So it'll be safer for everybody when they have the opportunity to walk on this path. So I'm looking forward to it getting done. Councilmember Lyons.
I don't know if we need a staff report, but I'm wondering if there's a little clarification that could be done. This is not the crosswalk. This is a sidewalk? Could you just characterize it?
Yes, no crosswalk. This is to build the segment of its roughly 700 feet of missing sidewalk in front of Seaside Beach. Yeah, no crosswalk would be funded in this project.
Yes, okay, thank you. I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hensy absent. That takes us to item 8L.
Okay.
And I don't need a staff report. No, I have a couple of questions about it, so. So in this one, I'm a little concerned about one of the projects, the project that is the South 101 lane diet and pedestrian path. So I think this does have to do with the crosswalk partially. And, I'm going to go, the lane diet is the terminology that just confuses me. When I go on a diet, I try to lose weight and get thinner. I don't lop off a leg, right? And so I think this should be called a lanectomy, because when I looked at the plans, it's actually reducing the number of lanes, and I can't support that. So my question is, I understand we're going for a grant here. This is not the approval. So number one question, this project will come back in the future, sometime way in the future, assuming we get money for it, correct?
Correct.
And we would have to approve the lanectomy at that time.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then, so, and I got that right. It really is reducing the number of vehicle lanes down from the 4 to 2.
Correct, yes. This grant concept is for a road diet, dropping one lane in each direction.
Yeah, a lonectomy, you said? Okay.
A road
Thank you.
diet.
Yeah.
Well, that's a traffic term. I didn't invent it. Yeah.
That is a euphemism if I've ever heard one. And so the question I have is, where was I going? Oh, the difference between the Sandag plan, which is 4 lanes, and this plan. How do we write that? Isn't the Sandag plan include all 4 lanes?
So when Sandag plan was drafted several years ago, the cycle track that we currently have on Highway 101 did not exist. They were just counting on a regular bike lane there. We have the cycle track, and we have added the DG path on the dune side, on the west side of Highway 101. That kind of took away a little bit of right away from us. We have, instead of just a regular 6-footer bike lane, we have about 10 feet on each side just for our bikeways, a 6, 7-footer, a 7-footer, or 8-footer in some areas even. Bikeway, a 3, 4-footer buffer with the bollards and wheel stops. And as we know, a lot of our cyclist community are not happy with riding there, so they're utilizing the number 2 lane, which is a share lane right now. So we thought with the opportunity that, unfortunately, because of the collisions over there that has happened during the years, we get a good benefit cost ratio to implement this road diet and basically cover every improvement that we want. We can widen our DG path on the dune side. We can continue the trail on the east side, on the lagoon side. We can introduce a new bike lane on top of what we have out there, so we'll have to protect it. We can even convert it to a 2-way. The details of the grant is not yet written. We'll hire a consultant. If we win, we have the opportunity to continue the 2-way cycle track all the way down and then add bike lanes in each side parallel to that. So this road diet will give us an extra 25 feet that we can do all these good things with.
So how much flexibility, if we win this grant, how much flexibility is there? Could it apply to a Sandag 4-lane project?
So the countermeasures are what Caltrans approves. The countermeasures that we have is the addition of the new bike lane and the addition of the new walkway. As long as we have those components in, not that they don't care, the number of lanes is not an element. The element of the HSIP is the benefit cost ratio associated with improving the road to cover the collisions that we had, which were mostly bike collisions. So if we cover the new bike lane of the grant feature, the feature of the new bike lane and the new walkway, it will be still supported by the grant.
Okay, so could the Sandag proposal for 4 vehicle lanes still qualify for the grant, in your best guess?
If we change this application, I mean, we don't have time to change the application, but if your question is after we win it, we can still keep the money and implement a 2-lane in each direction, I don't see that being a project killer. I think we can do it.
Okay, cool. And we'll have a robust public outreach, and we'll talk about the design at the future when we do that. And so moving forward today is not a commitment to 1 way or 2 lanes or 4 lanes. Moving forward today is just put in for the money, see if we can get it to help ease our budget.
Correct.
Okay, great.
90%
With that, I'll move approval.
Councilmember Lyons.
And I'll second that. Thanks for that clarification, Abe. That was really helpful. And I just want to point out that we are collaborating in cost sharing with the Solana Beach. And so we've been talking to them now for over a year. So thank you.
And then before you vote, just a reminder that Mo Samek from the City of Solana Beach registered support but did not wish to speak.
Okay, thank you. We're ready to vote.
The motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hensy absent. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10A, safety and mobility improvements in the vicinity of housing element sites. Study final report, including 3% preliminary design plans and cost estimates. And we're going to hear from Engineer 2 Edgeworth.
Ready. Good evening, Mayor Kranz, Deputy Mayor Blackwell, council members, and members of the public. I'm Matthew Edgeworth, traffic engineer with the engineering department. I will be presenting item 10A, the safety and mobility improvements in the vicinity of housing element sites study, final report. So a brief background on the city's housing element. As part of the 6th cycle housing element update, multiple sites were rezoned for multifamily housing to accommodate the future growth of the city. These sites are located citywide, as shown on the map on the slide. The various sites are currently at various stages, ranging from pending application to being completed. On October 19th, 2022, a council-initiated item was brought forward which provided direction to staff to advance mobility and traffic calming improvements near these housing element sites, including working with a consultant. On February 15, 2023, City Council approved the scope of work and provided funding to conduct a study to analyze potential improvements near the housing element sites. As part of the study, the following items were completed: a review of existing city planning documents, including the ATP, Active Transportation Plan, the LRSP, Local Roadway Safety Plan, as well as the MAP, also referred to as the Modal Alternatives Project, were reviewed. In addition, a review of existing field conditions through site visits were conducted at each of the housing element sites. Following this, the development of a list of potential safety and mobility projects with projects addressing active transportation, traffic calming, traffic congestion relief, and existing infrastructure gaps were developed. Lastly, 3 community meetings were held last year, as well as an online survey form was made available to the public via the city's website to solicit feedback on the study, as well as on the potential safety and mobility improvements. The top concerns received from the public are shown on this slide and include the lack of pedestrian facilities, the lack of bike facilities, traffic congestion or delay, pedestrian and bike safety, the lack of public transit in the city, and the need for traffic calming or reducing speeds. All public comments received as part of the study are included in the final report. At the November 15, 2023 City Council meeting, staff presented a preliminary prioritization list of the safety and mobility projects. From this list, the City Council selected the top 6 projects to move forward with the next step of the study, which was the creation of 30% preliminary design plans and cost estimates. The 6 projects that the City Council selected are listed in the table on this slide, and include the estimated construction cost at the 30% design level, the approximate cost for the remaining design and permitting costs, as well as the ITF, or the Infrastructure Task Force project rankings of the projects. Going from 1 through 6 for the projects, the first one listed is the Saxony Road Sidewalk Infill Project, which essentially would install concrete sidewalks along Saxony Road between Encinitas Boulevard and Leucadia Boulevard, where there are existing gaps. The Union Street Decomposed Granite DG pedestrian path, which would construct a DG pedestrian pathway between the future Clark Avenue apartments and Saxony Road. The Saxony Road and Union Street roundabout. This would construct a roundabout at the existing intersection with pedestrian crosswalks. The Quail Gardens Drive Sidewalk Infill Project. This would construct a pedestrian pathway on the west side of Quail Gardens Drive where we currently have a gap along the San Diego Botanic Garden frontage. Moving on, the North Vulcan Avenue multi-use path combined with buffered Class 2 bike lanes and sidewalk. This would construct a multi-use path along the west side of North Vulcan for the use of peds and bikes between La Costa Avenue and Encinitas Boulevard. It would also provide Class 2 bike lanes and a sidewalk on Vulcan Avenue on the east side, approximately 550 feet south of La Costa Avenue. And then the last project, the Sage Canyon Drive and El Camino Real traffic signal improvement and median improvement project. This project would construct a traffic signal as well as median roadway improvements at the existing intersection. The completion of the 30% design plans and cost estimates is the final task to the approved scope of work for the study. Additional design work would require authorization from City Council as well as additional funding. The recommended action before the City Council this evening is to receive the final report, which is attachment 1 of the agenda report for the safety and mobility improvements in the vicinity of housing element site study, which includes the 30% preliminary design plans as well as the cost estimates. Staff and the design consultant from Rick Engineering is available to address any questions. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have any public speakers?
Yes, we do. We have one. Jean Chapo.
I wasn't expecting that to be so quick. Gene Chapo, again, thank you for letting me speak. My concern is Clark Street Apartments and the improvements that would be are proposed for that particular project. Thanks for actually considering improvements to mitigate some of those items for that project. The project is, like I said before, 199 units, and it will generate a good amount of traffic and a good amount of foot traffic. And the street that, Union Street that I live on is only 1 block long, ends at a cul-de-sac at the freeway, and tees into Saxony if you're not familiar with it. Our concern has always been, with 200 units at the end of the street and the people who all currently live on the street, none of us will ever be able to get onto Saxony. A roundabout, I think, is going to help considerably when the apartments are finally built. I'm wondering if there was some thought as to a signalized intersection instead of a roundabout. I understand roundabouts are traffic management, and a signalized intersection is a completely different animal. A signalized intersection would allow spurts of traffic to come both directions rather than locking it up in a cul-de-sac when everybody's coming down Saxony and nobody on Union has an opportunity to join. Thank you again also for the walkway, DG walkway. That'll be a vast improvement. I understand we're only part of the way in the process. We've got a long ways to go, and there will be an awful lot more input. There are people in my neighborhood who've had several meetings now who are interested in this particular thing and are keeping track of it. We've had our traffic engineer who made a presentation earlier come out and meet with us to give us some information about where we stand and how much longer it's going to be. Clark Street Apartments, like all apartment projects, are having an awful lot of difficulty getting financing right now. Back when they got their entitlements, we saw 3% money, and I think their pro forma just doesn't work like it used to. So I'm not looking for a lot of these projects to be happening right away. If it takes 3 years to unwind all of this and finally see something built, we might just jive with how that happens, especially if it's a 100% affordable project. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
We do have another speaker, Ari Novi.
Hello, my name is Ari Novi. I'm the president and CEO of San Diego Botanic Garden. I just wanted to very quickly thank the staff and the council for all the diligent work looking at these mobility improvements. The Botanic Garden continues to be incredibly excited about the possibility of improvements on Quail Gardens Drive. we are really hope to be a very strong partner with the city on this project, especially in the way that we can help coordinate activities between the city and the county. As most of you know, that land is technically owned by the county, and we have already begun conversations with them, and they are supportive. I also really want to state it's been wonderful to have various members of the staff come to the garden and see what's going on there, which has made things wonderful, and I think most, if not all, of the council has been there as well, and we're really thrilled for that opportunity. I do want to just connect in the mind of everybody here another study, which was on the improvement of bike lanes. And just, if I remember properly, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that section of Quail Gardens Drive up to Westlake was very highly prioritized for bike safety. We've had informal conversations with the city about the potential to combine those two projects to deal simultaneously with pedestrian safety and bike safety. The Botanic Garden would absolutely be willing to discuss both of those things coming together in an integrated project on the property of the Botanic Garden. We think it would be super cool to not only have pedestrians entering for free into the Botanic Garden area, but if it's possible, feasible, technically appropriate, certainly bicycles as well. We're really committed to the safety of students, pedestrians, and everybody, working to walk, bike, and otherwise use really safe, environmentally appropriate transportation in that corridor. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
That concludes speakers.
All right. I appreciate the effort that's gone into this, especially the community engagement. It's pretty interesting to read the comments. We definitely have some folks engaged on these issues related to slowing traffic and bike and pedestrian safety. So I appreciate all of your participation in it. This is the result of a council member initiated item to focus directly on those areas around the housing element sites. And I appreciate the council supporting this. It's great to be at 30%. I look forward to 100%. Gene Chapo is right. These things take time. There's costs involved, and so we're going to be in that budgeting challenge. Appreciate the effort. Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, thank you. I also appreciate making this progress. I think it will make a big difference. I am curious about Ari Novi's comment about can you combine the sidewalk and bike lane project for that section that runs along the west side of the, Quail Gardens Drive near the Botanic Garden. Is that even possible when we're looking at this kind of grant?
Deputy Mayor, the project with the improvements on Quail Gardens is already underway, and it was fully funded. Contractor is hired. They are working right now at the Botanic Garden entrance for the mini roundabout there, and also the striping and the just restriping of that stretch is already underway. This project, as was mentioned by staff, is not fully funded, not for design, let alone construction. So we're a long way away before being able to finalize the design of this potential sidewalk, let alone building it.
Got it. Okay. And I understand then, because I do know the work that's going on right now, but I was thinking it was something additional for a bike lane. But okay, so that helps. So we really just need to focus on that sidewalk infill, and that would be really important to do. Okay, good. Thank you.
Councilmember Ehlers.
So I appreciate the work here too in this update, and I wanted to make sure everyone and make sure you agree with this, that these are projects that we are prioritizing to take them from 0 to 30% design. They're not all the prioritized projects associated with mobility improvements near housing element sites. In other words, we have some that are already past this. They're already at 100%, and the one near and dear to my heart is Trail 82. So when we go forward, we get the 30%. The reason we're doing this, I believe, is to be closer to, getting a better estimate of the cost and hopefully being able to submit for grants. But we already have several projects that are even further along the process, so to speak, and ready to go for grants. Is that a correct characterization?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so great. And is there a master list with all these that we could look at, especially associated with housing element? In other words, it would be nice to come back with an addendum to this that showed all of the projects near that would help mobility near housing elements, even though some are at 100% and others are going for a 30% design now.
The focus of this effort was to put together designs where they were missing.
Right.
But yes, we could put together an effort where we can combine what's already been done with this list of the 30% and then the ones that still need funding to move forward.
Yeah, I think if you go down further in the report where you've got the color chart with the rankings, they're all in there somewhere, although they're not ranked by priority order. I think we already had a list of 5 that back when we approved Trail 82 to move to 100%, I think we chose 5 that time too. And I want to make sure that people understand how they're intermixing and how and maybe it's a future item for the agenda that we go and take the whole list and put it together and say, here's the priority we think we're at today. So.
Appreciate that idea.
And I'll make a motion to approve.
Councilmember Lyons?
Okay, yes, I'll second that. Could I just ask a couple questions here? Could you go back to the slide where you have the projects listed with the amounts and then the IATF ranking? And this maybe develops a little bit on what I've heard my colleagues say as well. These are gaps. We've identified these as areas that are gaps that are going to be well needed based on the housing element. So they have infrastructure task force rankings based on the year prior to this when the infrastructure task force did overarching rankings. Now that we've identified these as more, I would consider it more highly important than we had before because we've identified them as gaps where we have housing element projects coming in. I'm wondering if I could get some council input on how we look at their rankings then based on this new information. My gut says that some of these, well, of course, there's one that's number 1, so that's clear. But the ones that maybe aren't so highly ranked, maybe they're a little bit more important now that we've identified them as the missing pieces in areas that are going to be highly in need. I don't know if my colleagues have some thoughts on that, but I just before we leave this item, I wanted to get your thoughts on whether you think, because they're on this list, they should be more highly prioritized for finishing the design and going to construction.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, I went back through the infrastructure task force list, and I still think it's really good direction. It's got a lot of projects, and you can see where these 6 fall. They use a different rubric, so I think, Councilmember Lyons, they're still appropriately ranked. These projects or housing element projects are also different stages of development, so when we're going to need them might be a factor as well. I think we as a council always have the ability to say something should come up the list. Again, the infrastructure task force gave us a good prioritization mechanism, and it gave us a good way to look at it, but it didn't necessarily tie our hands of saying something should be come up and be higher on the list. But I'm comfortable with the ranking and comfortable that these will get done, maybe not right away, but we will do our best to get them done as quickly as possible. And if the need is bigger, it will go up higher on the list. We will ensure that, right?
Right. I think it sounds like you're aligned with my thinking.
Perhaps you could help me understand when I look at item number 5 on the list. I remember the infrastructure task force estimate for that pedestrian bike facility in the rail corridor along Vulcan from La Costa Avenue to Encinitas Boulevard was about a $20 million project based upon the estimate that was provided to the infrastructure task force. I see this as $2 million, so clearly you've done some really remarkable value engineering, and I'm wondering if you could speak to the significant difference in cost estimates.
Yeah, so this is for like a DG trail, and the $20 million is for a coastal rail trail similar to what we've constructed between Santa Fe and Chesterfield.
Okay, so because coastal rail trail is something that is a Sandag project, my hope is that while I recognize we have a trail now between Leucadia Boulevard and La Costa Avenue that's pretty rough, and I would love to see that become DG. But I also, hope that whatever we're doing isn't necessarily a throwaway item. But I think that it's important that we figure out how far down the road the Sandag project is so that we can know whether we need to wait or whether it would be prudent to wait. Because these improvements, the ability to walk and bike in that corridor is proven to be very popular and for good reason. So I look forward to that. Councilmember Ehlers.
I would just want to offer a amendment to my own motion. Could we add to it bringing back a fusion of this list, the previously approved, and all in the area of the housing elements? So this list, the previous approved designs, and then using the infrastructure task force, bring it back to the council for review and any, what was it, how did you say it, modification. We reserve the right to move it up or down, so, and that we agendize it in the next quarter.
I think Joy seconded.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, I'll accept that.
Okay. And I like the idea because one of the things that it does demonstrate very well is how important additional resources would be to our job. So these are improvements that would enhance safety and mobility, giving people in our community the ability to choose to leave their car at home. And I think that there's nothing more important than having a safer system that allowed people to make that choice without having to risk their lives. So I appreciate the addition, the amended motion, and we're ready to vote.
I just want to clarify the motion. So it's to receive the final report and then also to direct staff to bring back the list from the ITF along with the projects that have been completed as well as these projects?
And a recommendation for priority.
And recommendation. Thank you.
May I ask for clarification then too? Would that be just for these areas around the housing elements?
Yes, for the housing
Okay.
elements, correct.
Is that helpful? Yeah.
Let's see if I can get it to vote. Deputy Mayor? Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hensy absent. That takes us to item 11A.
Okay, but before we go to item 11, we're going to take a break. But before we take our break, what I want to let everybody know is that item 12A is an item that I submitted to consider some conditions that Mr. Glenn Johnson made for the potential naming of what he would like to see be a park. And I know there are a lot of people here to speak to the goal of making it a park, but I want to let everyone know that that isn't really what's on the agenda. And so I get that you want to express yourself, so we're going to allow comments on what is essentially off, not the agendized item, but we're going to limit comments to 1 minute each. So if you've prepared a speech, you might want to parse it a little bit so that it is limited to 1 minute. So we will take a 10-minute break. We will come back to hear item 11A. And actually, I'm gonna do this a little differently. We're going to hear 12A when we come back from the break, and then we will hear 11A. So we'll see you in 10 minutes.
He is moving item 12A ahead of 11A.
You're very familiar. Yeah, nice to see you.
Is this done? What's going on? Okay.
Bill, right? Bill, Shun is last name. My husband Kyle behind you.
Okay, if you could take your seats, please. Let's get going again. Okay, is this turned up? Kathy, is this turned up? Hello? We're ready to get started, so if you could take your seats, I would appreciate it. And as I mentioned before the break, we're going to hear this item 12A before 11A, and give you all an opportunity to speak for a minute. The report had included with it many of you may remember when Mr. Johnson got up here, had a previous conversation about L7 and made a generous offer for a $100,000 contribution towards a park, and in consideration of that would be the naming of the park after his wife Sally. The city has a naming policy that is included in the report that was with the agenda item. It's a fairly broad policy about considering contributions for the purpose of naming. The city has one time before considered naming the library after a woman who had contributed a lot to the Friends of the Library, and there was a significant financial contribution for that. Ultimately, the decision by the council was to not accept the gift. And because Mr. Johnson's contribution came with some very specifics about the type of park, I thought it was important to get the Parks and Rec Commission to weigh in on whether a park like that is what would be the right approach to that particular parcel. And I do note that in the emails that we've received, there's a lot of people who say it should be a park, but there are many definitions and many configurations of parks. In fact, our recreation element has some of those that are spelled out, but there's a broad range of facilities and features of parks. I've been fortunate to be able to build a park on the Sierra Pacific site, which is now Olympus Park, and it's got a lot of features to it. I'm not sure if that's what the neighborhood envisions for this particular parcel, were a park to be built, but ultimately, Mr. Johnson has been pretty specific about low-intensity natural park, and so I think that in order to properly consider his offer, we should take the opportunity to hear from the Parks and Rec Commission about that particular request. So with that, we're going to start with public comment, and Mr. Johnson is going to go first. I'm going to be...
And Mayor, is he limited to 1 minute as well?
Yeah, we're going to let Mr. Johnson speak. This is his offer, and so we're going to let him say his piece, and then we'll move on to the rest of the speakers.
Okay, two big points. The first point is that we've been blissfully assuming that this is a place you can build houses, okay, and at a reasonable cost. But historically, this valley to the east of Quail Gardens Drive is the headwaters of Cottonwood Creek. It used to run on the surface. Now it runs underground, some of it underground in aquifers, some of it in pipes. Here and there's some seepage. And so you'll look at that site and walk it, and you'll realize that part of it is a wetland. Okay, you look at the Baldwin site where they're trying to build houses, and you'll realize that they've run into a lot of trouble. They've gone many times to the Planning Commission because they have wetlands on their property, gnatcatcher habitat, and so forth. And you look at the Sunshine Garden site, which was recently the site of a huge lake. That whole valley is part of a drainage area for a large part of of town. When this proposal went through, nobody bothered to think about the suitability of the site for building at all. And the cost of terraforming the site into what it would take for low-income housing. And this is so when you look at low-income housing there, you're going to run into nothing but expensive surprises. That was my first point. Second point, that was acquired by the city as a future park as part of the Encinitas Ranch annexation. The city council never got around to funding any development on the park. There were lots of other projects that got funded, but that park was just neglected. Oh, it's there, we'll get to it by and by. And now with housing element, there's even more need for parks. They're not making parkland anymore. And a bad precedent would be set when parkland such as this would be cannibalized for some other purpose. In a few years, another park could just vanish. This valley has wildlife. There are owls, there are hawks. I've had quail in my front yard, a whole bunch of them, mommy, daddy, and a bunch of little ones running back and forth in the middle of a front yard. And we owe the world some space for wildlife. I'm not going to preach about the Lorax, but this is a Lorax type of thing. Additionally, my neighborhood is taking the brunt of the housing element, and I want to do something good for my neighbors. They've been good to me. I've really enjoyed living in Encinitas, and even though my wife is deceased, and I may join her in a few years, hope many years, I want to leave something for posterity. So this is something I want to do for my neighbors. Okay?
Thank you.
And if you have any questions about my offer, if you need any clarifications, please just ask me.
Okay,
I'm thinking that that's an area where a quiet park would be necessary. We don't need to build a Disneyland. Because that valley does reflect sound. So a quiet day use facility that honors the wildlife of the area and provides contemplation would be appropriate, in my opinion.
Thank you.
I'm open to any type of park.
Okay, thanks.
You ready for public speakers?
Mm-hmm.
And that's 1 minute, no time donations, correct? Okay. First three speakers, Louise Julig, followed by Julie Malone, followed by Maria Ardance.
Hi, Mayor Kranz and council members. I get that people are passionate about this piece of land. They aren't making any more of it. This is a very generous offer, but it feels premature. Putting this on the agenda kind of was alarming to those of us that really have been working hard to get affordable housing on the city-owned property. Affordable housing is really hard to build and make the numbers work out. And having property that the city owns is one way of making the numbers work out. It's possible that what Mr. Johnson, I believe it was, said is correct, and maybe it's not suitable, but considering it at this time really kind of felt like it's making it a foregone conclusion that it is going to be a park. That city report 25 years ago was not written in stone. The city has opened parks, and your own document shows that area has lots of park area.
Thank you.
I'm Julie Mallon. Just really quickly, I think it's a park. I think it was meant to be a park. I very much would like it to stay a park. I think it's charming that there's quail on these pieces of land. It's called Quail Gardens. We've got enough housing of any kind of housing up and down, enough new development coming in. We haven't even seen the effects of the to-come development, the things that have been planned that are still under planning. The road is so busy already. A nice, quiet, contemplated park named after Sally Johnson. That's what I'd go for.
Next speaker is Maria Ardance, followed by Jim Stiven, Lois Sunrich, and then Stephanie Wheeler.
Hello. As I mentioned last month during the City Council meeting, the City of Encinitas is woefully deficient when it comes to parkland, and that's based on the National Parks and Recreation Association recommendations. I've given you guys the numbers before. I emailed it yesterday as well, but in a nutshell, we're essentially deficient 493 acres of parkland in Encinitas. It was really unfortunate for our city and her residents when the majority of this council voted to designate L7 surplus land earlier this year. Surplus land, that couldn't be further from the truth, based on the metrics, the recommendations from the parkland. The quality of life in our wonderful and beautiful city of Encinitas is slowly being chipped away, largely under this and the previous council's watches. And I'm asking you to make the first of many needed course corrections for our city. Redesignate L7 as parkland and develop it as a park with the absolutely beautiful and generous offer by Glenn. I have time donations.
Thank you. No, there's no time donations. Appreciate it.
Okay. Anyway, Glenn, that was beautiful, and I think you should accept his offer.
Jim Stiven, followed by Lois Sunrich, followed by Stephanie Wheeler, and then Dick Stern.
Mayor and council members, I'm Jim Stiven. First of all, I appreciate the generous offer that Mr. Johnson has made. And I also understand that your intent here tonight is just to refer this to Parks and Recreation for a study. But I'm afraid that it is premature to do that. The council just recently appointed a task force to study and report back to council on sites in the city that are most suitable for future affordable housing development. It would be a mistake to take this option off the table, to take L7 off the table and designate it as a park before the task force has even completed their study. It would be an error to have the Parks and Recreation spend the time and effort to make this study with an assumption that it's going to become a park when the task force has not even reported. So I'd ask you to defer action at this time and consider this after the task force has submitted its report. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lois Sunrich. How long have we been at this conversation? I personally have been in it for 6 years. Tony and Bruce, you've been in it even longer. The Affordable Housing Task Force is looking for potential sites for 100% affordable community for our essential workers. And we do not know if and we know that L7 does not pencil out financially, and we do not know if other sites will. In the meantime, we are holding our workers who keep the wheels of Encinitas turning at arm's length year after year, holding them back from living in the city they attend to day after day, so we can be proud to call it our home. Please don't stall anymore. Let's bring this conversation to a conclusion.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Wheeler, and I think this area needs to be park. I am a resident of One Channel Island, and it's concerning to our 70 homes that we're going to put more homes, or potentially put more homes on Quail Gardens Drive. We already know that there's so many safety precautions that are going to come into play with everything that's going on there, and it just makes zero sense to do anything but to leave that land alone or put in a park. So please do the right thing. I'm surprised to see that you brought it up tonight, Tony. Maybe it's because you're looking to be reelected, but I love the direction that you're going in, and you definitely have the support of our area to make it a park and do something nice for the kids that live in that area and not put any more homes there. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dick Stern, followed by Aaron Hebsche, Elizabeth Carrera, and then Jim O'Hara.
Honorable Mayor and council members, my name is Dick Stern. I'm the president of the Encinitas Ranch Community Association, and I'm here tonight to represent the constituents in my community. We, as a community of 500 homes, strongly endorse the action being considered by you to direct the Parks and Recreation Commission to consider the creation and naming of a park on the vacant city-owned site known as L7, based upon the very generous gift being made by Glenn Johnson. We do so for several reasons, including the fact that Quail Gardens Drive is already going to absorb over 1,000 housing units between Leucadia Boulevard and Encinitas Boulevard. This represents 40% of the fifth housing cycle. We strongly support the need for more affordable housing, but this is not the right location for many reasons. Secondly, this property is already designated as a park in the city's general plan and is going to be desperately needed as a park with all the other planned housing and needed to meet the objectives of the city for park space. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Aaron Hebsche, Leucadia District 1. I am an open space advocate. I'm also an affordable housing advocate. So this is a challenging topic for me. The last thing I want, though, is for this site to be developed. It should be open space. I do, however, it makes me very uncomfortable to be contemplating, despite Mr. Johnson's incredibly generous offer, something that is so prescriptive. If I had $100,000, can I just offer something to the city and hope it gets done? It seems like a very undemocratic process to me. So I do appreciate the process that hopefully we'll go through with moving it to the Parks and Rec Department, and we'll see where it goes. But thank you for this opportunity to talk about the subject.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Carrera, followed by Jim O'Hara, Jennifer Canone, and then Rose Weinstein.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Carrera, and I'm just here to speak up in favor of building a park at the L7 space. I live in Encinitas Ranch in the part that is sandwiched between Leucadia and Encinitas Boulevard, and I think it's of vital importance to keep a green space on Quail Gardens Drive. I will never understand why why so much housing had to be concentrated at either end of Quail Gardens Drive. It's going to make life difficult for people who live in Encinitas Ranch in that section to get in and out of their neighborhoods. But that's what I wanted to say. Thank you. And I was so moved by what you said. Thank you so much.
Jim O'Hara, followed by Jennifer Canone, followed by Rose Weinstein, and then Kevin Gaddy.
Hello again, Jim O'Hara. I'm running for City Council here in District 2. L7's in my neighborhood. It should be a park. I'm recommending that the City Council direct the Parks and Recreation Commission to consider the creation of the park and the naming of the park at this time. L7 doesn't move the needle in the net zero category. It's on top of 1,100 units where we're going to need a park in that for everyone's public safety health, for their mental health, for every piece of it. The park itself is on wetlands, as they've touched on. It's going to need a special waiver anyways to build on it. Doesn't meet the 80-20 rule. The lot itself is split by the road. It's not a great place to be doing that anyways, to be building extra housing and trying to manage that out. Last, and I think most importantly with all this, the city's 20 square miles, and we have only 120 acres of park space. Do any of you know how many acres of park space we're supposed to have in a city that big according to the National Park Services? 500. We are 400 units. We might be shy in other areas of different things, but we are shy of park space, and you want to take it away from residents who have had it promised to them. I ask Mr. Tarquin if we could get a vote or move to have this move to become a park today.
Thank you.
That is something we can consider in this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you to the heroes behind me.
Jennifer Canone, followed by Rose Weinstein, followed by Kevin Gaddy.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I currently live in Devonshire Community, which is on the corner of Quail Gardens and Leucadia. So we are very impacted currently by the Fox Point Farms project there. Overflow parking is in my community, as well as on the public street right there across the way. It's very partially developed, and we're seeing cars flowing in already. The stop signs and traffic calming are amazing. I'm so glad the council voted to put those in. I know there's the roundabouts in process, but we're seeing congestion on the road if you're trying to take your small child to daycare every morning like I do. I would love a park for our family, for our community. We have a very small one today, and if you go there on the weekend around Saturday morning at 11, you have to wait for about 3 kids to get on the one tiny little infant swing. So it's really not sufficient for that huge community going in at Sunshine Gardens. Really appreciate the generous donation from Doug Johnson and for you all for considering this. So thank you so much for bringing this up, and we would love to see L7 as a community park in our neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rose Weinstein. I also live in Devonshire, and I really thank you for allowing us to talk about this park. And thank you for that amazing, generous donation. It is donations like these that allow us to bring parks to communities. And I too feel the same as the last speaker. We have kids that run around. If you ever drive on Quail Gardens and you see the cul-de-sac that's gated, we make parks in that cul-de-sac because there are not enough parks in the area. We have kids running around going in circles in that cul-de-sac because we're trying to keep them off the streets. The street of Quail Gardens is not a safe place to ride your bike all the time. Getting into these parks is really much, much needed. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kevin Gaddy, followed by Matthew Simons, and then Oliver Pratt.
Hi, my name is Kevin Gaddy, and I live in Encinitas Ranch. I understand that the state is putting a lot of pressure on you guys to do affordable housing and low-income housing, so I get it. But the fact that you're going to build so much on one road, 1 mile from Encinitas Boulevard to Leucadia is ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. So that's a 2-lane road. To take on that much traffic is just crazy. Why are you guys putting all the housing in that one sector? I really hope you'll use common sense and realize that L7 is not the place to build affordable housing. I think a park would be great. I lived in LA many years ago. I want to avoid the 405. When I look outside my house and see Quail Gardens, it looks like the 405 freeway to me. It's just ridiculous. And there's other parts of Encinitas that can be affordable housing. Several years ago with Tony Krantz, we were at a neighbor's house at their table, and we agreed, hey, we'll approve the building at Lucadia in Quail Gardens to go into effect, but not L7. So I hope you really consider that again. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Matt Simmons. I'm a resident of Encinitas Ranch, and I'm for a park. I work across the country with people that are experiencing homelessness. I work with communities that are helping build affordable housing. It's been my mission for the last 24 years. And the population density that you're trying to obtain by, if you were to put a park housing in here, is just untenable and unsustainable. My child goes to Capri. They had 31 kids in his class last year. That's too many. We don't pay our teachers enough, and it's too much of a distraction. We can't have more of a concentration without actually having deeper studies about what the impacts are going to be to the school and the transportation in our communities. There are more affordable places that we can build housing, not where we're putting them. You're taking money off our tax rolls that could actually be used to reinvest to other development areas. Thank you.
Next speaker is Oliver Pratt, followed by Jessica Pratt, and then Bob Kent.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. My name is Oliver Pratt. You might remember me from the last July council meeting. Since you saw me last, I have some updates to share with you. Following the last meeting, I thought a lot about how awesome and generous it was for Mr. Glenn Johnson to donate $100,000 towards the construction of a park. So I decided that I also wanted to contribute. However, I'm only 10 years old, so my allowance fund doesn't have anywhere near $100,000 yet. So I worked all summer searching for golf balls in the Encinitas Ranch golf course bushes, cleaning them with my little sister Eleanor's help, and then selling the upcycled golf balls and brownies back to the golfers on the course. So far, I've made a whopping $1,542. And today I'm proud to share that I would like to add to Mr. Johnson's donation and give all of it to help build the Sally Johnson Encinitas Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica Pratt, followed by Bob Kent.
Good evening. Good job, Oliver. All right. Hello, Mayor and City Council. It's nice to see you again. My name is Jessica Pratt. First, I want to be absolutely clear. This is not about opposing low-income housing. I've grown up here. I watched my friends get priced out of here. We need it. We need it badly. Just Quail Gardens is not the place to put it. I'd like to give you a couple of reasons, or reasons why we should be turning L7 into a park. First being, with over 1,000 new units being built, that's about 500 kids that are going to be moving into our neighborhood, and we need a place for them to play along with the existing kids. Second, in 1998, the L7 property was purchased by the city of Encinitas with park funds, as you know. Specifically for park use, it was and still is designated by the city's general plan as Quail Gardens Park Site. And third, constructing a park addresses an increasingly pressing issue that is soon to become a problem for you. Fox Point Farms was built with insufficient parking. We now have a parking lot on our entry into Encinitas Ranch. If we build a park and a parking lot adjacent to that lot could be used for nighttime parking for the valet service that they're currently using. Thank you.
Tough acts to follow there. Good evening. My name's Bob Kent. I'm an Encinitas resident. First, thank you to Glenn Johnson for your generous offer. I was appointed to the Affordable Housing Task Force. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve. I think the purpose of that task force is to look at every city-owned property and other sites in our community so that we can find a way to build an affordable community. And we have just started those meetings. I think we should play this out and finish our task at hand, which is only a couple months, and then reconsider Mr. Johnson's very generous offer. Thank you.
And then, Mayor, that does conclude public speakers. And then I have Suzanne Stone, who is in opposition to the recommended action until the Affordable Housing Task Force reports its findings. And then Natalie Satoon, who registered support for the action but did not wish to speak.
Okay, thank you. And after Mr. Johnson's offer, he and I met for coffee. I had tea, and we discussed, his preference for the type of park, and the naming of a park, the naming of any facility after somebody is a full city council decision that I can't make myself. So I pledged to him that I would have it on an agenda in August, and I barely made it, but here we are. And the important step, in my opinion, is that we consider his offer in light of what his desire is to have in terms of a park there. And I think we are capable of doing two things at once. Mr. Kent mentions the task force that he's on. I serve on that, as well as Councilmember Hinsey. And the work that we're doing there is very important. But we also need to be looking at this offer. I think we owe it to Mr. Johnson to either accept the offer or not. Maybe ultimately it's a conditional acceptance based upon future conversations about the ultimate use of the park. But I think it deserves some action, and so to me the first step was to consider the conditions that he put on it, and I do think we are capable of doing parallel tracks on this. So I brought it here to the council and to consider the recommendation. There may be other recommendations that come out of this, and that's what the deliberative process is about. And so under the Brown Act, I put it on the agenda to hear from everybody. Thank you. Councilmember Lyons.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Glenn, for your generous offer, and it's a very moving memorial to Sally. I am like Erin Hepshey, who said, I am an advocate for parks, I'm an advocate for open space, and I'm an advocate for affordable housing. So I'm happy with achieving all those objectives in our city. In a minute, I'm going to ask our Parks and Rec Director to come up and answer a few specific questions about our park system. But what I want to say right up front is that the intent of a council member initiated item is for a council member to bring something forward as an introductory piece where we all get to hear what everyone's thoughts are, we all get to hear what each other's thoughts are, and then figure out what the right way forward is. I don't anticipate being supportive of any action today that would make a decision about a park on this project, on this site, because we don't know enough yet, and I don't want to go off on a tangent that later on we regret. So let me give you a few bits of information that are running across my mind right now. First of all, I think that we can achieve a park that is on this property as well as affordable housing. And that's always been an objective that I've kept in my mind, because a park would be an important asset to the community, and also affordable housing will be. And what is important with that is we can blend the ideas of Mr. Johnson of a nature park, of a habitat park, and a trail, and maybe some benches and some signage to Sally in a beautiful memorial that's associated with a portion of the site. I say that for a few reasons, and one of them is $100,000 is very generous, but parks cost a lot more than that, even if they're just a nature park. And so there's that. And I was wondering if, Dave, you could talk a little bit about the cost. I know you and I have talked about this, but for the benefit of the folks in the room, the cost of parks that we have here in Encinitas, but also in general per acre. Could you give us a little insight?
Thank you. When we talked and looked at what is out there for projects throughout California, $500,000 per acre was pretty common. We looked at the last project in Encinitas, Olympus Park, which is a very nice special park, and that was $1.7 million per acre.
Right, okay. Also, can you give me some, and everyone, some idea? I want to tee this question up a little bit by saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the record that I've researched is this site has not been identified as a park for 20 years in our documents, although 26 years ago it was identified as a park. So because it hasn't moved forward being identified as a park, is it in our Parks Master Plan document?
It is not in the Parks Master Plan document.
And
I do not find it in the Parks Master Plan. I've read through it twice.
Okay, and so it's not in there. What is the right process for considering a park in our city when it's not in our master planning document? And then how would we go about identifying where we'd get funding for a park? If you can say that, just not too much detail, but it was a big question.
And it doesn't have a simple answer.
Okay.
You know, you've got a lot of factors when it comes to where a future park is. One of them is space available, but it's also direction from the city council through the budget process to what are priorities and where do we want to go. Park and Recreation, Cultural Arts Department, and Park and Recreation Commission also is a place that we take people come and ask, for what they desire, and to share up to city council. They speak at city council meetings, and the public conversation can stir a lot of the paths that we take.
Okay, thank you. I think that was a good, quick summary. I appreciate it. I mean, in my mind, I just wanted to get your thoughts on what that process might be and the public input side of it, and that it would take a little bit more than just making a decision today. I would like to be really well informed about what's possible, because when you donate money, I want to make sure we're able to use it effectively and we're able to achieve what you would want to achieve. I know that you've also talked about there may be other people who would be interested in donating. And so there may be the opportunity of setting up a nonprofit that goes in that direction while we're thinking about the process of what size park might work here. So from my professional background, I would say that a park is achievable here along with affordable housing. Now, I know that may not be the objective of many people in the room, but that's where I'm going to stand on this. I think there was one more thing I was going to say. No, that's it for now.
Okay, Councilmember Ehlers.
So I'll continue with asking questions of our Parks and Rec director. In the current, and maybe I'll need the development director too. For the current funding approach and the current Surplus Land Act, I believe we had to commit that 80% of this land would be used for housing and not for a park. Doesn't that limit our ability to do a park? If we did a park, it could be maximum 20% of the 9.5 acres. Is that true?
That one I don't have an answer for.
I don't know if we have.
I understand that to be true, but
Yeah.
you're not asking me.
Yeah. So you agree.
I asked that question.
So it would be
Yeah.
a very limited park. It would be 80%. In fact, the way the property is right now with the road through it, less than 80% is on the east side, and therefore there has to be at least one housing unit if we go down this path on the little wedge on the west side. So that's one problem. Moving on to the Parks Master Plan, when was that written?
2016?
Okay. And is it listed in our general plan? Is the park site listed as a park site in our general plan? And by the way, general plan is our constitution. It is the top document. The ordinances flow out of that and have to be consistent with that policy. The other plans, the climate action plan, the homeless action plan, all have to be consistent with our general plan. But it's listed in there, isn't it?
To be honest, not an expert on the general plan.
Take my word for it, I know.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, it's on the map and on the document.
I just want to be clear. I'm the only council member up here that has consistently voted no on turning this into housing. And I won't go through all the reasons. Some of you have said them very well. I believe it was bought for a park. I shall continue to fight for this as a park. I do support the motion tonight. I think it can go in parallel. The Affordable Housing Task Force is a totally separate topic. There's no reason that we can't get the information about what would it take. Does it make sense to do this, turning it into a park, accepting Mr. Johnson's very generous offer? I support looking into it. That's what we'd be doing. And quite frankly, I want to see everything on the table, and I think I support the spirit of where you're going with this item. I'd also like to thank Mr. Johnson for a very generous offer and reiterate what you said during your testimony. You said, quote, "I am open to any type of park." So I don't want, it doesn't have to be one park. It's always a negotiation to some degree. Oliver, wow. I wish I had your poise when I started going up to that podium. Keep it up. And I thought the comment about parking lot from Jessica Pratt was an interesting comment, because we have things to solve there, obviously, with the way the neighborhood is maturing and filling in with these 1,100 units. It's just premature to turn it into housing, in my opinion. If we're going to slow anything down, slow the affordable housing down so that we can see the effect of the 1,100 new homes with about 150 to 200 that include in that build of 1,100 homes, about 150 to 200 of them are affordable. We're talking about 45 additional on top of that, but we already have quite a few coming, and we don't even know how it's going to turn out. So it's way premature to take this and declare it surplus. And I voted no on this surplus, and I'll continue. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a couple questions, maybe starting with you, Mayor, on the agenda item. And maybe just to clarify for everyone, including myself, what exactly would you, are you envisioning the Parks and Rec staff and commission to return with this agenda item?
I expect that they would consider the letter that Mr. Johnson sent with some fairly specific flexible of the type of park, but I envision a low-intensity natural park with primarily native plants such as Torrey pine, coast oak, and sycamore trees, and other plants that will attract birds, butterflies, and other wildlife, maybe with a quiet area with a few wooden benches and picnic tables. So that seems to me that maybe that's a little bit like Cottonwood Creek without the tennis courts and basketball court. The idea would be to maybe identify passive use parks that are in other communities that we could model this park after. And that way we have some framework that we would be discussing when we consider the offer that he's made.
So is it a rough concept of what Mr. Johnson has proposed?
Right. And, I think it's important to gauge the desires of the community in terms of what type of park. The emails that came today all said we want it to be a park. Well, what's your idea of a park? Is it like Olympus Park? Is it like Cottonwood Creek Park? Are there activities there? There's talk about a skate bowl at Moonlight. Maybe there should be a skate park there. There's, pickleball courts that are desired in the community. What shape is this park going to take? And I think that is something that the Parks and Rec Commission is capable of deliberating on and having a conversation about. And, they'd come back with some recommendations, and, we would, I think, run it by Mr. Johnson and see what his thoughts are, and then consider his offer in light of what conditions he's going to put on that. And so that was the idea in terms of getting the commission to weigh in. And the policy that the council is operating under talks about donation means a significant gift or contribution toward the acquisition, development, or maintenance of a facility. So this would be the first step in development, use of his contribution for the development, and a development that he would agree to as a condition of his contribution. And then the council gets to decide whether we're going to accept it with whatever conditions he may put on it. That's how I see that process playing out under this policy that we've had, I believe, since 2014.
Agreed. Okay, so it's a rough concept with some public input, probably costing and evaluating the naming proposal, correct?
Correct.
And Director Knopp, if you could just talk about what kind of resource that would take just for the Parks and Rec Commission and Parks and Rec staff to support that. And why I'm asking is just, we've been talking about we can do parallel paths, but I do want to make sure that we're being fair to this path as well as the Affordable Housing Task Force and other things.
Excuse me. The Park and Rec Commission is the city's arm, your arm for public communication. So asking that commission to talk about park and recreation and be open to public communication during their meeting, it's something that we've done with other groups, is kind of why they're there. So giving the questions more, specifically, this is what we're asking the Park and Rec Commission to discuss, and any factual information we can include with that, and setting that out so the public knows that's where it's going to be discussed is something I think they can handle.
Okay.
And will do well.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. And thanks to the public, I wanted to ask those questions to clarify, just so we make sure we all are on the same page of what we're, even here to discuss and move forward. Glenn Johnson, thank you for your donation, and Oliver for your additional golf ball sale donation. I do appreciate that, and it means a lot when the community comes together and really advocates for something. And at the time when Glenn made his offer back in late June, I did express my gratitude to him for that offer. Because ideally, I'd love to see that as open space. I'm a community gardener in that garden space nearby, and it would be great. I also am a huge affordable housing advocate. I feel very passionate about that, and that is why, although the mayor gave Ms. Hinsey all the credit, I did suggest we launch that task force, so I'm going to take back the credit. But we just got started. We just started last week. We've had 2 meetings. And so, and our purpose is to try to find as many or more units of affordable housing that we can build somewhere else in the city, and the city kind of leads the way at identifying that. So it'd be great to have our cake and eat it too. A park on L7, affordable housing somewhere else. But again, I agree with those that spoke saying it was premature. This does feel premature because it may set false hope for this audience that we've somehow are agreeing and advancing a park. So just to be clear, we'll get to a park concept, but there's not a decision today. I think the way it's framed, I can support it moving forward as long as it's not distracting from the other work. But I really, again, want to be clear that we're just moving forward the idea to get to a concept. And I listened to Councilmember Lyons. Generally, parks, even in their most natural form, take quite a bit of money to build, develop, build, and maintain. So we need to understand all that before we can evaluate the offer successfully. So with that, again, I'll say I'd love to have our cake and eat it too. A park where it belongs and to give some relief to the neighborhood where we are getting a lot of development, but also let's accomplish the goal of finding enough or more affordable housing so we can preserve having a good, diverse mix of housing in this city. And with that, I'll yield.
Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. So first, I want to echo the thanks to Glenn Johnson. You're a hero within your community, and you're inspiring the next generation to take that type of action, and it's really inspiring to see. So thank you for setting that example, and Oliver for spending your summer doing something that was so worthwhile. So I, too, am in favor of offering the Affordable Housing Task Force more choices, and taking this off the table as entirely a park is taking an important choice away from them. Let's remember that with 45 units on a city-owned property, we have an opportunity here that we have nowhere else in the rest of the city. So should we take this opportunity away from them, that means we allow the private sector to have to build these 45 units, which means maybe 5 or 10 across the city, coupled with high-density building elsewhere. So that means that anybody else's empty lot near their house that they treasure and hold dear could be the site of high density. So it's important to me that we focus on keeping this as one of the choices that the Affordable Housing Task Force can consider. And I think that the intent is there that some part of this land is a parkland. I think from the very beginning that Councilmember Lyons and I continued to bring this up as a solution for the state mandated affordable housing that the city of Encinitas is required to see built, that this remains a really important part of that puzzle. So while I love the idea of naming this Sally Johnson Park, I support some part of this land being dedicated to her name in a park. I don't support the recommended action that says, recommend the City Council direct Parks and Recs Commission consider the creation. So that needs to be removed, in my opinion, because we're not creating a park here tonight. And that was a little bit misleading to me because I did hear the clarification when I was driving over here. But I think to me and a lot of folks that are sitting here tonight and spending their valuable time to provide us their input believe that tonight we could be creating a park. So let's refine that, and perhaps we can build some consensus that after the work of the Affordable Housing Task Force concludes, that there could begin a discussion about naming this park, what it looks like, what it feels like, and how that fits in with the other part of our responsibilities as council members. And to me, it is a little bit frustrating to hear your frustration, because it is nonsensical that you have so much density on Quail Gardens Drive. It's not a great spot to have all of this density. And in fact, the reason it's there is because councils of your never faced the fact that we were responsible to build affordable housing. So now we're living in the moment where it's here. If we don't build it, we as a council, you as a community lose your land use authority potentially to the state of California. We pay high penalties, and we don't want to be in that position. So today we're in a position of being a little bit more proactive, and that's why I was able to support the Affordable Housing Task Force to look across the city to consider all of the options, and that when that moment comes and our back is up against the wall again, as it will be once we face no net loss, which is a very confusing topic, and I don't expect all of us, even me, I struggle with understanding when we're going to hit it, to understand that. But it is coming, it will be here, and at that time, I want to have as many choices as we can possibly have as a community to decide where we're going to put our affordable housing. So I see Councilmember Lyons wants to speak again, so I'll refrain.
But I'm going to take an opportunity to speak, and I will point out that if the council directs the Parks and Recreation Commission to consider the creation and naming of a park, that means they're going to look at this letter from Mr. Johnson, they're going to see the conditions that he put on it, and they're going to imagine the creation of a park there. The Parks and Rec Commission isn't going to create a park. The council's going to create a park if the council chooses to do that. So there's been much made of this, the action recommended, and I want the Parks and Rec Commission to consider, what if there was a park created there and it looked like Glenn's idea about what the park should look like? And that will come back to us in the form of a report. Maybe there'll be an oral report, maybe it'll be a PowerPoint presentation, and here's what the park might look like. Here's a sample of, a park in Tempe, Arizona that looks like this, and it's great, and it's got trails, it's got gazebos, it's got trees, it's got everything that Mr. Johnson is suggesting in his email. It just didn't seem that difficult of an assignment for the Parks and Recreation Commission. No question, the most difficult assignment is for us to figure out where the hell we're going to build more affordable housing, because the state isn't giving up, and they're going to continue to push, we need to build more. And we can't fight the state. We already tried that once. It was $3 million at least in attorney fees. So we're going to have that challenge. And I'm not trying to take L7 off the table for that particular work that we're doing at the Affordable Housing Task Force. And did I say that it was Kelly's idea? I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to say that, but I apologize. And so, that's why I think that what I'm recommending the action we take is reasonable, and our Parks and Rec Commission is quite capable of it. Apparently, they had some deliberation the other day about a skate bowl at Moonlight Beach, which would probably be one of the sandiest skate bowls that ever existed. And so, I think that there's that dual track here is perfectly doable. Councilmember Lyons.
I just want to conclude my thoughts by my comments by saying I'm confused by the timing of this. I don't understand why it's important now to move this forward when we've got our Affordable Housing Task Force engaged just recently and ready in November to give us their findings. It seems like we got it backwards. Is there any reason why we can't wait until November?
Well, can I answer your question there? Mr. Johnson is not a spring chicken, as they say, and he had asked that we, get the answer to this question. He's made an offer, and so the idea was to parallel track, and we probably wouldn't be considering what the Parks and Rec Commission decided until that time. Till November. But if we wait until November to ask the Parks and Rec Commission to consider the conditions that he's put on his offer, then it's going to be how much longer after that? And, I don't know if $100,000 is enough to do it. We do have an indication that there may be other fundraisers available to contribute to the fund. So that was the goal, was to get this thing moving in Mr. Johnson's interest. He indicated that he wanted to get a deal done. So that's why it's here, and that's why I think we should do it as a dual track. Councilmember Hinsey?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't support that. To me, it seems like, you're going to be tasking the Parks and Rec Commission with building this beautiful park without a lot of boundary around, how big it is, or if it's going to even exist if we come against a affordable housing mandate. So waiting until November seems like the most logical thing, and I think it's misleading to the public to have two groups with conflicting interests that are designing in tandem, when in fact in July we were asking the community if we could design this housing project with a park. So I can't support this. It's a little bit misleading to the public, I believe, and I think the Affordable Housing Task Force needs to finish their work before we begin this discussion.
Well, I appreciate that. I would like to make a motion. I would move the council direct the Parks and Recreation Commission to consider the creation and naming of a park at the city's property on Quail Gardens Drive based upon the gift offer being made. And in addition to that, continue the consultant work that was supposed to do the community outreach to talk about the housing possibility for L7, and then just combine this conversation about a park versus housing so that we can, we can gather information. Look, the fight over L7 has been raging since 2014.
Yeah, and I'll second.
I've been in the middle of it. And it actually goes back further than that because, first there was going to be a library there. And then there was going to be, a swap with the Eckies for 10 acres for a public works yard, and they were going to build these homes. And then it got on the housing element. And so this has been going on a long time. It's not new, and it's not going to go away. And so I want to get Mr. Johnson an answer, and that's why I make this motion.
I seconded that.
Okay. Do you want to speak again, Councilmember Ehlers?
No.
Deputy Mayor
I
Brown?
was going to make a motion.
I can be comfortable with that proposal or motion, Mayor, as long as we are kind of putting these things, you know, sort of on parallel paths that have similar timing. I think if we get ahead of ourselves on one or the other, it's not honest with all of you. So I do want to make sure we do that, and that, again, I was concerned it would tax our commission and the staff in Parks and Rec. It sounds like that's doable. So I think bringing it back, I won't call it a package, but, you know, of bringing all those concepts together and continuing and having one conversation about L7 is probably best. So I can support it for that reason. But again, it is a bit, if we're to bring a park back before the Affordable Housing Task Force, it's just going to get really wonky,
Yep.
and I don't support that.
Okay. City Manager, do you see any problem with combining the consulting work that we had engaged previously?
You don't really think I'm going to get involved in all this, do you? We will do whatever the council directs us to do.
Okay. I appreciate that. And Councilmember Lyons?
Yeah, I just want some clarification on your motion. So I still stand where I stand, but you said something about continuing the affordable housing consultant on the track of public outreach. And I understood those were your words. That is the next phase of their work, and we're giving the okay to move forward with that. Am I understanding? If this passes, then we've given them the okay.
You actually did that at your last council meeting discussion on the
Let me parse that.
phase one? Yeah,
Because there were two phases. We approved the first phase.
correct.
I'm talking about the second phase. I want clarity on that.
Oh, I don't know if your motion, does your motion include the second phase of the?
It's the public outreach.
consulting?
I think we had agreed to go with the first phase, the public outreach. The second phase involves the design a little bit. Yeah, and that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking this would be part of the first phase.
Okay.
And I think that the first phase, you know, is going to be part of when we get to the Affordable Housing Task Force, the end. It's, you know, that's going to be able to inform the conversation as well.
Okay, I'm still not in support of it, but I predict what might be the right way forward. And when we go through these parallel tracks, is we realize that we can combine a park that Mr. Johnson envisions with the affordable housing. So I'm still on that. But thank you for that clarification.
Okay, and I know that it's that time of year where there's an effort to establish a difference from one candidate to the next, but I can assure you that my involvement in the conversation about L7 has been pretty extensive, and it's what didn't end up on the housing element because of me, Mark Muir, and Joe Mosca. And it's been a fight, and I have some big fans for some people that are fans of L7 as affordable housing that have been very unhappy about that fact. And again, I'm not, you know, I did vote to move forward with the assessment of the site for housing because I thought that it was important to be making informed decisions about the costs that might be associated with it. But I also, with Councilmember Ehlers, voted to oppose declaring it surplus. So just wanted to make that clear. Councilmember Ehlers.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, as usual, I voted no on declaring it surplus, and that was the real action here that said it's not a park. It's going down the path of not park and declaring it surplus. So
Yeah, we were together on that. So,
but I
okay,
think,
we're
I
ready
think if you look at the
for
tape, it was different reasons, but it's because you wanted to follow a process. I was still no on the park.
Ready for a vote.
I'm just going to clarify, so it's recommend the city council direct the Parks and Recreation Commission consider the creation and naming of a park at the city's property on Quail Gardens Drive based upon the gift offer being made, and in parallel, continue the affordable housing consultant Phase 1 work and public outreach regarding L7 as affordable housing.
That's correct.
Okay, I can include that. Oh, okay, we were having connection issues, so I'm going to go ahead and just call each one of you for a vote. Lines,
No.
Ayers,
Yes.
oh, give me one moment, sorry. Popping me in and out of the system. I'll just put down the list. Ayers, Hinsey,
No.
Blackwell,
Yes.
and Kranz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you all. Back to item 11A, Habitat Stewardship Program Progress Report, and we're going to hear from Parks Operation Manager Norgard. So if you'd leave quietly, I appreciate it, because we're going to continue our meeting.
Good evening, Mayor Kranz, Deputy Mayor Blackwell, and members of the council. My name is David Norgard, and I am the Park Operations Manager. I'm here this evening to provide an update on the Habitat Stewardship Program for fiscal year 23-24. With me here this evening is Jade Wall, Restoration Manager with Recon Environmental, Colin Corey, Senior Director of Science and Conservation with the San Diego Botanic Garden, Joe DeWolf, Conservation Specialist with the San Diego Botanic Garden, and Ari Novi, President and CEO of the San Diego Botanic Garden. As an overview of our presentation, we'll provide you with a brief history of the Habitat Stewardship Program, an outline of the work and accomplishments over the last year. We'll describe the ongoing maintenance and monitoring efforts for each of the sites that are currently funded, and we will discuss the next steps for fiscal year 24-25. As a reminder, the goal of the Encinitas Habitat Stewardship Program is to address basic property management and stewardship on city-owned property which contains sensitive habitat. There are 5 main management categories within the program: invasive plant control and removal, trash and encampment removal, fencing and signage, erosion control, and fire abatement. Additionally, the Habitat Stewardship Program uses an adaptive management strategy for implementation and to best respond to seasonal influences. Priorities such as trash and encampments, fencing, and signage are year-round, and we address those operationally. In the winter, we conduct planting to take advantage of the wet season. The spring is focused on non-native control to reduce invasive plants from spreading seed where possible. Summer also includes non-native control, access control, erosion control, and repair. And fall continues erosion control and brush management. A few dates to note here for the history of the program. In May of 2009, staff presented the sub-area plan and the open space management plan. In May of 2010, City Council adopted the early MHCP implementation program, which is now the Encinitas Habitat Stewardship Program. In January of 2014, we issued an RFP for the initial site assessment. In September of 15, the draft initial assessment report was submitted to City Council. In May of 2019, the initial assessment report was accepted by City Council. In November of 2019, we released an RFQ for the Encinitas Habitat Stewardship Program, General Services and Maintenance. And in February of 2020, Council approved the San Diego Botanic Garden General Services Maintenance Contract. Since that time, we've had a couple additions. In February of 2022, we executed an amendment with the Botanic Garden to extend their contract, mostly related to some COVID-related delays. In March of 23, Amendment 2 was executed to include services for Cottonwood Creek Drainage Area B, or what we call the Moonlight Parcel, and additional planting and maintenance at Cottonwood Creek Park undeveloped. In March of '24, council approved the Recon Environmental Contract for Habitat Stewardship Project Management and Environmental Services. And in June of '24, Amendment number 3 for the garden included services for Oakcrest Park for invasive plant removal, native plant installation, and irrigation. And as a general overview, over the last year, the San Diego Botanic Garden has dedicated more than 120 hours of staff time toward invasive plant removals. They've hosted more than 20 volunteer events, including our local schools, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of America, the Grower School, and other community groups to help supplement the restoration activities. These events also connected these local groups with our parks. These volunteer events removed 250 invasive castor bean plants, 15 tree tobacco, approximately 1/4 acre of ice plant, and a 1/2 acre of the vine nasturtium. As invasive plants are removed, native plants are installed to limit erosion and reestablish native habitat. The garden installed approximately 500 native plants last year. All of the plants were sourced from local populations within Encinitas and grown by the garden. And I'll provide more detail on each of the sites in the following slides. And as we look at each site here at Cottonwood Creek unimproved, the San Diego Botanic Garden built upon prior year efforts, including native plant maintenance and invasive plant removals. Over 300 plants were installed in areas where the garden had removed ice plant and other mixed invasive during the previous year. There's a pretty good before and after here. So you can see that site was all ice plant and is looking pretty good. And we have some of the trees there from Arbor Day. Native plant species are beginning to recruit new individuals in the absence of invasive non-native plants, indicating a self-sustaining native plant population. Native plant species are now the dominant plant type across most of the area that has been weeded and planted. Excel Landscape also works on access controls, encampments, and erosion control. At Cottonwood Creek Drainage Area B, or the Moonlight Parcel, the garden and Excel Landscape have focused on invasive plant management. The garden installed 200 plants on the north-facing slope at the southern edge of the parcel, where erosion was a significant issue. A storm drain repair resulting from storm damage the prior winter left the slopes bare, so planting the area was a priority to prevent erosion. Additionally, 10 Canary Island date palms were removed after they were infected with the South American palm weevil. This was a major operation that required shutting down 3rd Street for 3 days as a crane was needed to pull the trunk sections out. The area in this photo is set to be planted and maintained this year through the Habitat Stewardship Program work plan. Work at Oakcrest Park is focused on rare plant management strategies, access control, and overall habitat enhancement. We've installed fencing around Encinitas Baccharis, piled debris in front of rogue trails, and added signs. Earlier in the presentation, I touched on the adaptive management strategies. This fall and winter, we will increase invasive management and move into planting. Excel Landscape continues to monitor for trash, and staff work with Sheriff and the Hope team on patrols for encampments. I'll hand it over to Jade with Recon for an overview of their services now.
Good to go? Hi, everyone. As David mentioned, my name is Jade Wall. I'm a restoration project manager with Recon Environmental. I just want to take a moment to say how excited we are to be a part of the HSP team and have the opportunity to work with the garden and the city on this project. To dive into the work that we've completed so far, we conducted our first biannual qualitative monitoring event at all of the actively managed sites within the EHSP. Additionally, we conducted a qualitative monitoring visit for the Saxony Road parcel to provide updated management recommendation. That was because the initial site assessment was conducted a few years ago, so we wanted to make sure once this parcel is rolled into the actively managed sites that we have updated recommendations for that parcel. Our monitoring consisted of data collection focusing on those 5 management categories that David mentioned earlier in the presentation. And I want to mention that we use a variety of tools for our data collection. We use wild note forms and ArcGIS field maps, which I'll dive into on the next slide. Then we shared all of our monitoring results with the city and the garden. We just recently met and collaborated on the results and the recommendations that we provided in the hopes to provide a work plan for this fall, fiscal year 24-25, and big picture program recommendations for the EHSP. So diving into the tools that we have brought to the table, hopefully this is not blurry on the screen, but as I mentioned before, we've integrated wild note forms and ArcGIS field maps into our project management tools. WildNote is a customizable platform that's designed for environmental services community to streamline the process of field data collection, project management, and reporting. The way that we're using this for the EHSP is that each of the sites that we're monitoring, we create a WildNote form for that parcel, and within that form, we're discussing the observations that we're seeing on site and pairing that with recommendations. And then additionally, we're using that with we're pairing that with our ArcGIS field map data that we're collecting on site as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar with ArcGIS field maps, that is a mobile mapping application that we use to collect and edit spatial data in the field. So we have a GIS team that's able to then take that data and turn it into these figures, which is what you're seeing on the screen. This is a draft figure that we created based on the results of our monitoring events. And on the right-hand side, that's the legend that includes all of those management categories that David mentioned earlier in the presentation. And each of those has an associated symbol. So this is a really useful tool when you have multiple partners within a open space management project to make sure that we're all on the same page. We know where these issues are within each of those parcels, pairing those with the WildNote forms so we have clear and concise recommendations so that the open space management is consistent and constant throughout the year. And we have ongoing conversations and updates throughout the year as well.
A couple updates staff side. In August of 2023, we released the RFQ for as-needed environmental project management services, and in March of this year, council approved that contract, as I mentioned. Staff have met in the field with the Cottonwood Creek Conservancy, the Botanic Garden, Recon, and Excel Landscape to discuss ongoing and upcoming work. This includes discussions with the Conservancy regarding additional invasive plants to be removed, and we have directed Excel and other contractors to follow up on that. We have actually had 2 solid weeks of work from Excel to go after invasive plants during the blooming season. These meetings are now operationalized and we schedule them quarterly. And we've also published a page on our website to educate the public about the Habitat Stewardship Program. Wrapping up and looking ahead, we anticipate issuing a request for proposals to include new Habitat Stewardship Program work areas at Saxony Road, and if funding allows, Indian Head Canyon as the next highest priority sites established by the Habitat Stewardship Program Initial Assessment Report. Scoping's already underway and being done in coordination with Recon Environmental. New work for that contract will begin this year at Saxony Road after the contract is awarded. Work for this year will focus on Oakcrest Park, Cottonwood Creek Drainage Area B, and Cottonwood Creek Unimproved, with maintenance activities based on the recommendations from Recon Environmental's monitoring assessments. Recon will continue to perform additional biannual qualitative monitoring. The team's working to compile data for all of our Habitat Stewardship Program activities, including the frequency and quantity of work to be performed, which will roll up into an annual report. And lastly, the team is working with the Wildlife Conservation Board for potential grant opportunities at Indian Head Canyon. The WCB had some momentary pauses in funding due to state budget deficiencies, but our conversations are ongoing. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate the report. I also am fascinated by the work to eradicate ice plant. You know, it's incredible how much we have around our community. And, you know, I don't know whether the removal is something that can be done independent of the planting of other plant matter so that you don't get the ice plant back, but it would be nice to reduce it. Councilmember Ehlers.
Yeah, thank you. I love the update. Can we get a copy of or is it on the website, a copy of the presentation? I thought you had a lot of good information in there. The WildNote and ArcGIS, awesome. So, and in fact, I think there's a group that I suspect Joy and I will want to share this information with that are the Encinitas for native plants for NP4E, native plants for Encinitas. So they'll love all this information.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lyons.
Great, thank you. This communication is great. I appreciate it. Some of my questions had to do with not knowing this level of detail yet. So you mentioned the work plan, and I know I've asked for a copy of it. I'm kind of maybe that's more than a council member normally gets, but the work plan for me, I could read it, I understand it. That helps me know what we're doing. And so I don't need to rely so much on whatever regular updates. I would really appreciate a copy of that work plan. Because what I'm realizing is I do have some questions about what's presented here that if I just had the work plan, I'd probably get the answers. But one of my questions is, I see that we've got the great monitoring plan for Oakcrest. Do we also have a monitoring plan for the 2 Cottonwood Creek projects? Yeah, you just showed the other one as an example.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Each site that's funded will be monitored biannually.
And is this the first time with the recon contract that we have monitoring, that we're doing the monitoring?
Yes, it is.
This is a really good step. I'm glad we're at this point. What are some of the lessons learned? We're pretty new into the monitoring. So just from the perspective of monitoring, do we have any lessons learned yet? Things that we're discovering that are important to know about how the habitat is restoring?
Some of the good lessons learned, I think we're seeing at Cottonwood Creek Unimproved, because that site's been the first in the program and the longest running. So we have some good success there. As you know, it's not a one in and one out. It takes continuous effort. And wetter years, we get a little bit more seed bank. But as we continue to work on those sites, that seed bank lessens. And as I mentioned earlier, we're getting some native recruitment, so they're becoming the dominant species, so those are good. And that helps us determine how much effort is required at future sites for maintenance going forward. And Jade's team, through their monitoring, has been able to look at each of the sites and make recommendations for that year and into the future for the maintenance, which is a finer level of detail than what's provided in the initial assessment, and really helps with each of those years' work plans.
Very good. It's very dynamic, is what you're saying. It'll evolve based on what we learn through the process. Great. In recent years, I know you provided me with a summary a few months ago of what we spent in recent years and what was worked on in those time periods. I felt like there was maybe some money left on the table we could have spent, that we had approved, but we could have used, but we didn't. Do you think we're staffed well enough now, or do you want to give us some feedback at this juncture to fully maximize the budgets we have and get as much as we can out of where we hope we're going here with this work? Or where do we stand on that?
Well, the good news is the funds that are allocated for the Habitat Stewardship Program are capitalized and they roll over each year. Additionally, it kind of goes back to the adaptive management strategies. We'll spend low in the summer when we're working on invasive controls and stuff like that, and we'll spend heavier in the winter when we're doing planting and things like that. And each of the work plans and contracts, they tend to be a little bit longer running than, like, say, a CIP where you go and build a playground and you're done and you walk away and it's great. So that's just kind of the dynamic nature of it, and it takes a little bit longer. With the monitoring coming in, it's going to give us that finer grain detail so that we can really kind of dial those things in. And we're, frankly, we're still kind of at the mercy of nature. If we do have wet winters, it kind of reduces some of the time that we do have to work, although it increases the success of the plants that we put in the ground.
Good, thank you. One more question, and I'll be done. Based on where we're at and based on continued funding and the way we've been funding, how quickly do you think we'll be able to move over to Saxony, the next habitat? Do you think that might be in 2025, or do you? I got the sense when you're talking about your work plan that you were also using it to look ahead and figure out resources versus expectations.
We're going to release an RFP for the next phase of work, which will include Saxony. I'd like to get that out in September. So it'll take, that'll be on the street for 30 days. It'll take some time to review it. We'll bring that back to council for a contract approval. I would like to have that consultant start work this winter, so whether it's end of 24, early 25, but definitely having work beginning in this fiscal year.
Great. Thanks for the report.
Deputy Mayor Blackwell.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one question, a couple comments. So the Saxony Road property, is that at the very north end of Saxony?
It's not at the terminus. It's kind of, it's in the northern section, but it's not at the very
Okay,
end.
okay. Oh,
Could you
I
go back
understand
to the
now.
map?
Yeah, maybe go back to the map and I can see for myself. Good, thanks. Okay, yeah. I understand. Okay, thank you. And then I did just want to say, there was a few things, the report was really helpful and the work is really great, so I appreciate that. A couple things stood out for me, and that is when you were talking about Cottonwood Creek and you said the native plants, and I'm going to butcher your quote, but the native plants are now more dominant than invasive, and that's a huge turnaround. I'm also really appreciative that you've been continuing collaboration with, we have some residents who are super involved, as we know, and you've been very collaborative with the Cottonwood Creek Conservancy, excuse me, and I appreciate that collaboration, so keep that up too. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, that Cottonwood Creek restoration has really been pretty awesome, and my telling of stories, as a kid, I used to cross from Ocean View Avenue, go down the Avocado Grove, and hit that Cottonwood Creek adjacent to the freeway, and there was a concrete drainage ditch that dumped into, it would churn pretty good. It was Cottonwood Creek, right? And there used to be a pond there with tadpoles, and I would take tadpoles home and watch them turn into frogs, right? But it's gone. There's nothing. It's dry. There's no wildlife there anymore, and it's really kind of sad. So it's really nice to see that we're kind of working at least in restoring the plants, and that's good work. And I would point out that this is just another one of those things that additional resources would be very helpful for, because the only thing that limits us from doing more of this restoration is a lack of resources. So I think it's important that we figure out a way to obtain additional resources.
Open space is green infrastructure.
Yes, yes. Very important. And the eradication of pickleweed, that would be our next conversation. I also want to take this opportunity to say to David that I got from one of my arborist friends a very positive text message about the current state of trees in the community park. And so I want to applaud you for the efforts on your team to establish that forest, that urban forest. I know there's this guy named Jeff who lives right adjacent to the park. He's got a pool in his backyard, and when we started construction of the park, he was on the phone like, oh my God, you're grading a hill behind my house. My pool, I'm never gonna have privacy in my pool. And I have to admit, when I went out and looked at it, I was pretty shocked, and I kind of had some sympathy for him. But I rode my bike past there the other day. You can't see his house anymore. You certainly can't see his pool. It's forested and looks beautiful. So congratulations on those efforts, and keep up the good work. So I see no other requests to speak. Did you want to talk? No, she's going to pass. I just looked in the audience and you were there, and I thought, well, maybe. So we are done with that item. Thank you for waiting. I thought it was important that the young kids got to bed. School has started. So with that, we are moving on to item next.
Thanks, David.
Being, that, and I think it's AB 1234 things. Yes.
Last week on August 22nd, I attended the San Diego County Water Authority Board meeting. And then this morning, I attended the Encinitas Wastewater Authority Board meeting.
I attended the same Encina Wastewater Board where we updated the pension funding policy to maintain a smoother unfunded accrued liability on our pension. That was the main impact.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. I attended a meeting of the San Diego Community Power Organization, and There were we finalized the review of the general manager and her new contract, and also entered into some agreements for some management of power purchases and other things. And it's a pretty amazing operation, $1 billion worth of energy procurement and managing all of the cities, and especially the city of San Diego. But we're doing really good. There's some reports in there that talk about those that have stepped down, and the numbers here in Encinitas for the 100% power are still really high. So I appreciate the community doing their part to acquire renewable energy. Are we ready for a little wrap?
North County's hottest events happen here in Encinitas.
Yes.
For those of you who don't think you could take on that skateboarding, new cheer and tumbling workshops, 2 sessions, one beginning September 25th, the other beginning October 30th. Are you writing this down, Mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that skateboarding thing was going to
The
work for
tumbling
you.
is something
The
that I
tumbling
haven't-
might work. And then we talked a little bit about this. We are completing our citywide striping at our new all-way stop intersections, so you're going to see some more striping and things around. And as was mentioned earlier, the Affordable Housing Task Force has gotten started, and those audio tapes of those meetings are uploaded and are available for people who can't attend those meetings live. Thank you.
We probably should have reported on that in our AB 1234. So yes, we had our second one, and a very engaged group of people, some really good questions, and they seem purposeful in their efforts. So I appreciate the community stepping up.
And I have to add, we are going to have a rubric. Yes, because if you have any infrastructure task force members on this group, you will get a rubric. So we're excited about that, and it will help us a lot, actually.
City attorney reports.
Thank you. City attorney observation this evening. There has already been a report in there's been a newspaper article in the San Diego Union Tribune about our special council meeting and Captain Watt's presentation on the homeless.
Oh.
And that ends my observation.
Were you on your phone while you were at the meeting?
I was raptly involved in that meeting.
Nice. City clerk reports.
We do have a vacancy on the Urban Forest Advisory Committee, so applications are available. We've already received 3. And then we are finalizing the applications for the Environmental Commission. We had 2, and I forwarded those to the mayor.
2 great candidates. I will be interviewing them and making a recommendation. Okay. Good night, everybody. We're adjourned.